In the opening scene, an army of foot soldiers attack the infamous corpse deity using just their rusted swords and pay dearly for it. As dozens of soldiers lose their lives to the ruthless being, the savior, Shigrua Edith Lugrid, aka the Calamity Crusher, makes his way to fight the dangerous being. Once he gets face to face with the demonic bastard, Shigrua unleashes his most powerful magic spells and attacks to subdue the demon, while the other clerics who brought him from the church watch everything unfold. As the fight rages on, the clerics notice the labyrinth growing larger and curse the necromancer for bringing more dead dudes into their world. After rushing the big demon with a barrage of sword magic attacks, Shigrua pauses for a second to watch the necromancer's next attack. Upon noticing the pause, the necromancer casts a diabolical spell that shocks everyone in the labyrinth. To keep the hero busy, he sends a dragon to kill Shigrua, but as we'd have it, Shigrua kills the dragon without breaking a sweat. Moving on, Shigrua faces his arch nemesis and continues to wow the clerics who were spectating the fight from a safe distance. Initially, the clerics feared for the hero's life, seeing as the necromancer already summoned an army to defend himself. However, Shigrua takes his time to replay his sob story right in his head. After slaying the second dragon the necromancer sent to him, Shigrua activates his evil eyes and uses them to see the spirits and souls of the people the necromancer has killed in the past. The necromancer notices this and tries to reason with Shigrua, seeing as he pretty much has the same eyes as the hero, but then again, Shigrua never negotiates with terrorists. As such, he smites a fraction of the necromancer's army and continues killing off every single one of the bastards, till he eventually uses his last brain cell to crush the rest of the skeletons under some rocks. With just him and the giant necromancer skeleton left, Shigrua does his best to reason with him by talking some sense into his head before fighting him. He tells the skeleton to stop being such an asshole by playing with the corpses and souls of those he's killed in the past and turning a new leaf so that he can be a better person. Having lived for almost a century, the necromancer knows it's too late for him to go back and be good. So he conjures new sigils, ones that even Shigrua isn't aware of, and chants incantations for the showdown. Shigrua prepares himself for some serious final attack and even gets some help from one of the clerics behind him. When it comes down to it, Shigrua and his infallible attack magic help him win the fight. Before the necromancer could blink, he found himself struggling to remember the last thing that happened to him. After a few more hazy flashes and visions, the necromancer suddenly wakes up in an alleyway in modern Japan, taking the form of a teenage high schooler. As he struggles to take in his new environment, the necromancer feels his throat and discovers some blood patches there. "What could have happened to me?" says the necromancer as he waltzes towards the light at the end of the alleyway. Eventually, he gets back outside and is flabbergasted when he finds how modern and electronic the world around him is. Unable to decipher whatever the fuck he's witnessing, the necromancer just wanders the streets like a lost pet. What he didn't know was that the teenage body he possessed was just killed by an elite mercenary assassin group who were out to retrieve his body. One of the operatives behind the desk, Takumi, gets concerned when he notices the dude they just killed walking outside like nobody's business. To investigate further, he has his drone confirm that the dude is indeed the high schooler they just killed. Confused, Takumi cancels the body retrieval and watches the guy with blood patches on his throat stand around in confusion. Meanwhile, the necromancer, now in the high schooler's body, accepts the fact that he's been reincarnated into another world. Only this time, the world he's in enjoys everlasting peace. While he tries to think about his former world, two cops show up after noticing him wandering around and speaking some Japanese to him. At first, the necromancer couldn't understand the language, but he kept his cool till he used his magic to decipher their words before answering their questions. Apparently, the cops were worried about the blood on his shirt and wanted to help him out. They ask him for his name, and the necromancer gives them the name of the original owner of the body, Polka Shinoyama. Unfortunately, just as the cops were about to help him out, a beautiful weird lady steps on one of them and drags Polka back to the alleyway where he was. As they rush through the streets, two weirdos who call themselves Arase and Iwa notice the odd occurrence but choose to ignore it and enjoy their day. Upon returning to the alleyway, the crazy lady introduces herself as Misaki Sakimiya and asks if Polka remembers her. As Polka gets more flashes and visions, Misaki hauls him into the air and shakes him vigorously. Then, she pulls him closer to her boobs and makes him get a feel of them. Once she's sure he's truly alive, she gets back to the major reason why she was there, which is to kill him. While Polka thanks her for saving his life, Misaki pulls out the weapon she used to murder the real Polka earlier and attacks the necromancer. The necromancer, aka the new Polka, recognizes Misaki from the flashbacks he's had of her and runs for dear life. In the meantime, Takumi tries to make himself feel better by accepting a contract to kill a child. After running for a while, Polka finally gets a place to hide. While he thinks of a way out of his situation, Misaki catches up to him and attacks him. For the first half of the fight, Polka dodges and defends against all of Misaki's attacks. However, as soon as Polka tries to run away, Misaki stabs his leg with an iron bar. Polka gets incapacitated for a while and decides to go on the offensive and take down this bitch attacking him. To do this, he throws one of her knives at her and lures her into the deepest part of the building they're in. Soon, Misaki shows up and tells him a few things about the building. As it turns out, that building used to be the Yakuza's execution grounds, and most people steer clear of it just because too many people have been killed there. Misaki then asks him if he can see the ghosts present in the room they're in, and Polka finally uses his evil eyes to get a sneak peek at the dozens of ghosts flocking around the crazy woman coming for his head. After muttering a few more gibberish terms, Misaki goes in for the kill. This time, Polka, aka the necromancer, already had his magic prowess back and better, so he takes his stance and stabs Misaki with one of his huge skeleton hands before pinning her to the wall. He feels this should be a good enough punishment for her for toying with the lives of humans around her. While Polka gets his time in the new world, Shagrua and the other clerics struggle to understand what had happened during that last attack. Shagrua was pretty convinced he noticed the necromancer's soul, but at the very last minute, his evil eyes couldn't track the necromancer's soul anymore, almost as if it vanished into thin air. At the same time, the necromancer regains full consciousness in his new body, and thanks Misaki for giving him a new chance at living a peaceful life. He then moves on to mutter a few more nonsensical words before finally realizing that he accidentally killed Misaki during his last attacks. Every attempt to wake his assassin up was futile, and in due time, he became very scared of what might happen next. Before the main story continues, the necromancer tells us how his sad life began as one of the rare ones born with evil eyes. Upon noticing that their son was born with such evil eyes, the necromancer's parents sold him off to the court sorcerers where he was trained to become a necromancer to fight for the empire. For years, the necromancer fought valiantly for the success of the empire, but eventually, politics and greed led to the empire's downfall. Even after losing his place in the empire, the necromancer sought to lead a peaceful life. As such, he resigned his ugly-ass self to live alone in a cave for eternity. As the years passed, the necromancer noticed some lost kids living in the caves with him and got out of his way to feed them by giving them fruits and meat daily. Although he didn't show his face to them, the kids still appreciated whoever was helping them, and the necromancer was more than happy to help them out. Eventually, the kids discovered the necromancer's hiding place and welcomed him with open arms, playing with him whenever they could. Life was good for a while until the stupid humans found out about the kids' relationship with the ugly necromancer. Unable to accept such a relationship, they caught all the kids, called them defiled and impure, and killed them all to cleanse their land of the evil kids. Upon finding out about the wicked humans' betrayal, the necromancer avenged the kids by killing off every single one of the bastards who killed them. Once he was done with that, he returned to living his life alone, learning all he could about reincarnation spells. Since he could no longer die of natural causes, he waited centuries for a hero to show up and kill him so he could finally complete his reincarnation spell and yeet himself out of that cold, cruel world. With the arrival of Shagrua, his mission was completed, and now he's faced with his first kill in the new world. Now at present, Polka does his best to wake Misaki, but unfortunately, she is long gone. Before doing anything, he has an emotional meltdown over how stupidly overpowered he is, and corrects himself shortly after. In the meantime, Takumi has a hard time accepting what the heck just happened in front of him. He soon receives a call from his employer, Lisa, who asks him why he was taking too long to deliver on the last job. Takumi sends her a video feed of Polka's incident with Misaki and waits for her response. Meanwhile, Misaki relives her most cherished moments as her life slowly moves away from her. As it turns out, Misaki wasn't always as crazy as she is now. Born to a loving father and mother, Misaki had always experienced parental love from the start. However, that all changed one night when a serial killer attacked and killed her parents right in front of her. For years, she conditioned her mentals to become like serial killers before finally tracking and killing the bastard who killed her parents. After accomplishing her life's mission, she still wasn't satisfied with life yet. Although she was already working for the organization at the time, Misaki still wanted to know how it felt to kill good people and get away with it. She didn't give a shit about what others had to say about her, and instead pushed for jobs that involved killing people she had no beef with. So when an assassination request came to kill a little kid, she jumped at it and slit his throat without a care in the world. Surprisingly, she didn't feel a thing, and still even wanted more. To achieve that height of success in her life, she realized that she had to kill herself. With this in mind, she hopped onto the ledge of a skyrise building and prepared to jump off and end herself. However, just as she's about to pull it off, Takumi calls her and urges her to get back to finish the job she was sent. Initially, Misaki was shocked to hear that the kid she offed earlier was back up and running, but eventually, she gets her shit together and rushes to finish the job. Before reliving the rest of her memories, she jolts back to life and finds herself lying on the ground close to Polka and Takumi's drone. She asks Polka for an explanation, but then again, Polka was too stunned by her big chest to offer any explanation. Misaki eventually asks Polka to explain how she's alive, but then Polka lets her know that she's been reborn with magic and isn't back to life yet. It's much safer to call her a zombie as Lisa feels her to confirm that she's dead. So the question on Misaki's mind right now is, what happened while she was dead? Well, it turns out that 40 minutes before her resurrection, Takumi, the information broker and behind-the-scenes guy for the organization, called Lisa and her henchmen to the scene so they could investigate the scene for themselves. Upon getting there, Lisa is shocked to see sigils and large skeleton body parts all over the room. She double-checks to make sure she isn't tripping before letting Polka finish whatever he's doing on Misaki's body. Once he's done infusing Misaki's mortal wound with some magic, he turns and demands to know the people facing him. Lisa introduces herself and her friends to be Misaki's homies, and asks Polka to explain what happened to their dear friend. After narrating how he killed Misaki in the first place, Polka moves on to tell them how he used resurrection magic to fix her body and put her back in place. When Lisa and the others hear Polka talk about magic, they freeze up in their stance and ask the imposter to provide further evidence that he was truly using magic. Polka, aka the necromancer, soon finds out the hard way that magic doesn't exist in the world he's currently in. To save face, he dispels the spell sigils and tries to pass off what just happened as a mass hallucination. Of course, Lisa knows she ain't tripping, so she calls him out and urges him to cut the bullcrap. In response, Polka summons his attack spells and gets ready to off everyone in that room. Before the atmosphere gets violent, the idiotic leader, Lisa, asks for some time to think things through. Polka gives her the time she asked for and observes the strange weapons her henchmen were carrying. Just as the silence was about to get too deafening, the bunch heard fire sirens blasting right outside, and although they were supposed to attend to the emergency, they chose to keep their dear friend company. Takumi does a little digging, and soon finds out that there's a fire in the Shakuzawa building, which is a nursery where Yakuza orphans and odd kids are being taken care of. Polka gets concerned when he hears about the children in danger, so he asks Lisa to tell him more about the incident, which she did. After hearing enough, he immediately asks to be taken there so he can save the children. When asked why he cared so much, the man tells them it's because he feels children shouldn't suffer the same pain he's felt from being burned before. Lisa, satisfied with his response, has Takumi take the man to the building. Polka glides through the street buildings to get to the Shakuzawa building. Once he's there, he analyzes the situation and senses the children's life force. Before Takumi's drone could blink, Polka yeets himself into the burning room and infuses the souls of their dead parents into skeletons so the parents can carry their kids down to safety. Once the deed's been done, Polka gets out of the media's sights and continues doing his thing. Takumi checks the media and finds the skeletons there, but before he can do anything, he takes his time to figure their new friend out. He warns Lisa to steer clear of the bastard, but then Lisa tells him to hurry his arse to that building so they can witness Misaki come back to life. With Misaki back on her feet, Polka moves on to discuss his next move with Lisa, which is achieving true peace. He asks Lisa to tell him the best way to acquire such a thing in this world, and Lisa tells him he needs to have lots of power and money. Moving on, she asks him to reveal his MO for being there, and Polka tells her he's only looking to lead a peaceful life in whatever world he's in. Having heard Bro pour out his heart and soul, Lisa is moved and offers to help him out. She formally introduces herself as the intermediary for the assassins and assigns Misaki and Takumi to be his new henchmen as they help him navigate through life in modern Tokyo. Upon figuring out his new job, Takumi breaks down in tears and moves to join Polka downtown. A few days later, Polka, Takumi, and Misaki all settle down in their new hideout. While Misaki chills out watching a video of the skeletons posted online, Takumi and Polka work on moving in their new stuff. At a point in their move, Takumi gets worried and asks Misaki if she feels a certain way living with the person who killed her. Quite on the contrary, Misaki was pretty psyched to be living with such a weirdo just like her. If anything, she enjoys Polka's presence and respects him for helping her fulfill her final wish, killing her. Takumi sighs and regrets ever asking her that question, but he soon moves past the conversation and discusses a few things with Polka. Polka, on the other hand, ignores everything he's spouting and instead thanks him for helping him fit into this strange new world. Takumi gets a mini freakout and asks Polka if he's truly okay with staying in the torture building. Polka lets him know he's good to go, but then Takumi asks him about the real Polka's family and how he plans on stalling them for as long as whenever. Well, Polka says he's fooled them already into believing the real Polka went on a journey of self-discovery since it's currently summer vacation on the real Earth. To further seal his alibi, Polka takes out postcards and promises to send them to the family every month so they know he's okay. Besides that, he's pretty blank on what to do next as he can't even remember the real Polka's family names. Well, Takumi urges him to try and just figure out how to recall their names, but then again, Polka just can't because of the way the real Polka died. Moving on, Polka talks about the similarities between his original world and the current one he's in. Although he could care less about the similarities between his OG world and this one, Polka is just happy that the Geldwood region doesn't exist in this world as the discrimination would be too much for him. Once they move past that, Polka reveals the name he was called in his former world, the corpse deity, and lets the remaining two know that he has to track down whoever wanted Polka killed in the first place. Takumi urges him to ask Lisa about it, but then Polka says she had to keep the secret for security reasons. Despite that, he still plans to find out for himself and only force her to speak as his last resort. Takumi pouts some more nonsense from his mouth before moving back to his desk to continue work. While Misaki clowns around with the toy skeletons, Takumi talks about the lemmings and quickly dies the topic to avoid revealing secrets. After that, the duo moved on to talk about the soul of the real Polka, which the necromancer had merged with one of Takumi's lost drones from the previous day. Upon realizing the foul play here, Takumi gets wary of Polka and tries to paint him as the bad guy for toying with human lives just like that. Before he gets his way, however, Misaki gets a visitor and goes outside to see him. Upon discussing further, Misaki finds out the visitor is an ex-Yakuza member who wants protection for a short time, so he doesn't get offed by a rival gang. After hearing his pleas, Misaki refuses to help him, but when Polka pops out of nowhere and accepts the job, Misaki changes her mind. So, later that night, Misaki, Polka, and the visitor visit one of the gang hideouts and stalk them till she loses patience. Eventually, Misaki goes in for the kill, only to realize that she's been ambushed by the bastards. What's even worse is that the so-called visitor was also in on the ambush. When it came down to it, he shot her in the back and revealed his true identity. Thinking he was done with the so-called Misaki, the visitor turned back to meet his worst nightmare, a pissed-off Polka. Polka, who just finished accepting the revenge request from the souls of the kids those assholes killed, lets them know that Misaki isn't dead yet, so their revenge mission failed. After that, he gives the souls of the kids some privilege to do whatever they want to the bastards. The souls of the kids conjured a large ball of earth and squished every last one of the gangsters who killed them. Once the deed is done, Polka the necromancer lets the souls rest in peace. In the next scene, Polka and Misaki are back in their safe house for their AAR. While Misaki admires her bare body, Takumi continues the operation. Make Polka the necromancer the bad guy. This time, however, Polka wins the conversation and makes Takumi look like an idiot for trying so hard. In the end, Takumi realizes that he and Misaki have been scumbags all along. They eventually get off the whole conversation, and Takumi moves somewhere private to report to Lisa. After hearing everything that happened, Lisa thanks Takumi for the help and assures him that her men are currently taking care of the few men who escaped the attack earlier. Meanwhile, Polka and Misaki are seen discussing vampires and turning her into one. After his call, Takumi settles down and nearly pisses his pants when he listens in on Misaki and Polka's conversation. Elsewhere, Lisa is seen getting a nice Swedish massage with two masseuses when she suddenly gets a call from a familiar number. Upon picking up the call, the person on the other end tries to get her back on track by killing Polka. This time, Lisa refuses refuses the request and puts her relationship with the client on hold for a while till they get back on their feet. After the call, she pours herself and her two girls glasses of wine to celebrate the new beginning. While the girls struggle to understand what the fuck was happening, Lisa was getting her balls tingled as she anticipates what happens next with Polka in town. In another part of town, Arase and his partner Iwa are seen in a familiar bar doing what they do best, drinking. While Arase tries to beg the security dudes to let them off the hook for not paying for their beer, Iwa just sits in the bar discussing with the bartender while he waits for Lisa to show up and do her thing for the night. After a few discussions, the drunkard harasses one of the waitresses there and gets smacked in the head by another crazy dude who thinks he is a zombie. Back at the safe house, Polka and Takumi discuss Misaki's new powers after her zombification. Apparently, she can now paralyze a person just by biting them, as her spit contains paralytic fluid that can knock even Polka off. Without thinking, Misaki bites Polka to test her powers out and also moves on to bite Takumi when she notices that her powers work on the poor fella. Takumi refuses to let her bite him and runs away. Up next, two policemen nearly find a weirdo trying to break down the ball Polka and those souls created earlier at the hideout. They only get there to find the remains of the assholes from earlier. Meanwhile, Ares takes care of the bastards he's been begging ever since, and soon gets called to come investigate the crime scene. Shortly after watching them go from his monitor, Takumi continues asking Polka random questions about his old world. Polka starts wondering if this world is so different from his, as Misaki boasts about her new powers to paralyze people. Moving on, Takumi talks about the technique the necromancer used to subdue those bastards, and Polka says he only incapacitated them but didn't kill them. At the same time, Iwa and Arase arrive at the crime scene and get themselves ready to study the eerie secrets behind the attack on the hideout. After getting all they need to build up a case, both cops return to the station to brief their recruits. As it turns out, both Iwa and Arase are members of an elite investigation squad in the Tokyo police force and are tasked with investigating crazy cases the police can't solve. As the meeting begins, Iwa mentions the only 3 criminals they haven't caught yet. 2 of them, namely the fire-breathing bug and lemmings, are directly involved with the fire at the children's building and the human knot they found at the hideout the previous night. For now, they believe the fire-breathing bug started the fire at the nursery, and lemmings made the human knot they found earlier, as one of the footprints they found at the scene matched his. When someone from the team asks if the skeleton in the videos on the internet is real or fake, Iwa's third female partner answers the doofus and lets everyone in that room know that the skeletons are real. Besides, if they were fake, then that would mean all those videos online are worthless. Even still, they still have to wonder how the children made it out of the burning building, alive and without help. To avoid any panic in the group, Iwa reassures everyone that their criminal is a human and not some sorcerer or fire-breathing monster, so they should relax as he believes they'll catch him the way they caught the others. Meanwhile, Polka is seen infusing the real Polka's spirit into a shark plushie so Takumi can have his drone back. Once he's done with the ritual, he appeals to the soul of the real Polka and asks for a little bit more time in his body before things get back to normal. As the necromancer and the real Polka seal their agreement, Misaki rushes into the room and hugs the cute plushie doll before placing the stuffed toy in between her melons. The pervert glows a bright pink, giving Takumi the notion that he's enjoying the little time he has with Misaki's melons. Moving on, Takumi asks Polka why his so-called plushie can't talk yet. Polka says it's because he would need a lot of mana to create a real humanoid vocal cord. Thankfully, he's in a building where lots of disturbed souls and spirits live, so harvesting mana shouldn't be that much of a hassle for him. Confused, Takumi asks him to elaborate, and Polka says that he can just harvest the negative feelings of the souls trapped in that building and turn them into mana. As their conversation progresses, Polka lets Takumi know that there's another way for him to get recharged. When asked how, Polka says they just have to buy precious stones like diamonds, sapphires, and the like, and that's it. His mana would be recharged, and he'd be ready to go. Takumi lets Polka finish his speech before taking him to the jewelry store to check out how high and inflated the prices of those stones are in real life. When Polka sees things for himself, he's flabbergasted by how expensive just one stone is in this new world. Before leaving, he picks a stone, buys it for over 3 million yen, and moves out shortly after. On his way home, Misaki asks him why he doesn't just steal the mana inside the stone, and Polka says it's because it would cause the store owner to suffer a loss. Takumi soon gets bored of listening to the two teens yap about boring stuff. However, just as he's about to think of the next thing to do, his worst nightmare, Arase, shows up around the corner and captures one of Takumi's drones. In the meantime, Iwa and his minions visit Lisa's bar to question her and her employees. After getting past the pleasantries, Iwa sternly asks Lisa to tell him all she knows about the previous incidents and her organization's involvement in them. Since he doesn't have a warrant, Lisa chooses to keep quiet. Right after taking down one of Takumi's drones, Arase turns to the two teens behind him and apologizes for startling them. While Misaki and Polka try to grasp the situation, he speaks into the drone and hopes for a response from Takumi. Just then, Polka opens his dirty mouth and scolds Arase for destroying his friend's drone. Surprised, Arase walks closer to the teenage boy to let him know just how dangerous Takumi is. He calls the information broker the worst kind of scum and urges Polka to be wary of the betrayer. Having heard every insult the bastard rained on Takumi, Polka gets pissed and activates his power a little, which not only pushes Arase away but also spikes his curiosity. After dodging the first bullet, Arase gets super interested in knowing Polka, so he demands Polka introduce himself to him. Takumi could already see through Arase's trick, so he warns Polka not to answer or show Arase his powers. Having heard this, Polka stays quiet while Arase continues scolding him for walking with dangerous strangers. Polka answers one of his questions and ends up pulling himself further down the drain. To keep Aris at bay, Takumi calls him and tries to get him off Misaki and Polka's scents. While talking to him, the information broker sets up multiple drones in the alleyway and threatens to post threatening videos of him harassing the teens online if he doesn't stop talking to them. Arase appreciates Nimrod's knack for extremities and wishes he were here to see the looks on Polka and Misaki as he exposes the true nature of the information broker. With Takumi still on the phone, Arase exposes him as a loose-mouthed betrayer who would sell his allies' information just to save his skin. Even after hearing all that, Polka refuses to judge Takumi and instead turns the table on Arase and names him the bad guy. Arase notices the change in Polka's aura, so he arms himself and becomes careful of what happens next. What he didn't know was that Misaki was already behind him, ready to strike. When he does notice her, it's already too late, as Misaki kicks his stomach and runs out of the alleyway with Polka. After recovering from that strong kick, Arase follows them, only to realize that they're gone. Eventually, he ups and leaves the alleyway, hoping to get to Lisa's bar in time. After their ordeal with Arase, Takumi lets Polka know that everything Arase said about him earlier was true, so he shouldn't be surprised if that happens to him sooner than he thinks. In response, Polka tells him he's pretty much used to snitches by now, so that's not a problem for him. Takumi then asks a few more questions about Polka's old world and he answers him. In the next scene, Arase shows up at the station and asks his female partner, Aikawa, to run the footprint on his stomach through the database. Aikawa is a little shocked to see a woman's footprint on his belly, but then she realizes it's no surprise that the footprint matches the one they found on the crime scene earlier. Once Arase finds out about this, he smiles as he's found another POI for his new case. During their next meeting, two other random officers from the station talk about the crazy things they've seen Lemmings do through the years. The older officer tells the younger ones that he once witnessed Lemmings himself take down 8 armed dudes with machine guns as they all shot at him. The diabolical thing about this criminal is that he didn't even dodge the bullets at all. He just lets himself get hit while he breaks the necks of every single one of them in that fight. So, fighting and capturing a criminal like Lemmings is something that's best left to professionals. Around that time, Iwa is seen drinking himself to death as he waits for Lisa to divulge any valuable information about any of the 3 psycho criminals that are currently at large. After muttering a few nonsensical words for the umpteenth time in the night, Iwa moves on to talk about the skeletons in the burning building. From the information he was divulging, Lisa and the others could sense that Iwa was smelling something fishy within their building. To get him off Polka's scent, they have to warn the teen against showing up at the bar randomly. Sadly, before they're able to warn him, Polka and Misaki waltz into the bar. Iwa notices them right away and warns them against underage drinking. However, when he gets a text from Arase describing their new POI, aka Misaki, Iwa gets curious and starts asking questions. Meanwhile, Arase and a bunch of goons from the force secretly make their way toward the bar, and Takumi can see them approaching the bar. While he tries to phone Lisa to warn her of Arase and his boys, Misaki gets acquainted with her new friend, Iwa. Polka is also seen enjoying a glass of orange orange juice when Arase shows up at the bar and sees himself in. Misaki notices him and calls him a perv for harassing her earlier. Iwa plays along for a while until he gets serious and gets up to begin his interrogation. Just as they're about to start questioning the kids, the lights go off and Polka does his best to get Misaki out of there. Before he's able to do a thing, Polka feels a sudden sharp tingling in his throat and stares at the ceiling to witness the horror unfold before him. As it turns out, Lemmings was in the same room with them, and the aura that the bastard emitted made even the necromancer scared for his life. Lisa lights a candle to provide some light, but that's not enough to quell the growing despair and shock the others feel from being in the same space as the devil himself. As for Lemmings, he takes his sweet time to pick out his targets before attacking. Moments before the chaos ensues, Lisa and the cops try to figure out Lemmings' endgame. Arase, however, soon gets tired of waiting around while one of their most wanted criminals is right in front of them. As the showdown begins, Misaki warns Polka against underestimating Lemmings. Polka, who could see the dangerous aura around Lemmings, keeps his guard up. Soon, the entire room erupts in chaos as Lemmings draws first blood, taking out as many cops as he can before the lights come back on. Amid the fight, Arase singles Lemmings out and manages to corner him somewhere around the bar. Lemmings, on the other hand, ignores Arase in the meantime and focuses on his main target, Misaki. As it turns out, Lemmings had somehow infiltrated the police office without them knowing earlier that day to investigate the owner of the footprints he found on the crime scene. Upon realizing that the footprints belonged to Misaki, he planned this attack just so he could capture her. So, after keeping Arase at bay, he captures Misaki and prepares himself to get the freak out of there. Polka tries to save his dear Misaki, but then he stops himself from using his full powers to avoid drawing attention to himself. Upon investigating his attacker further, Polka realizes that Lemmings isn't human again. He's already surpassed every human in that world and is much stronger than base-level Polka. To avoid suspicion, the only option available for him is to run for dear life. Even at that, Polka still couldn't bring himself to abandon Misaki just like that. As such, he attacks Lemmings with his necromancer powers in the pitch darkness and rescues Misaki from his grasp. Lisa puts out the candle she turned on earlier to give Polka some time to attack and catch Lemmings. Over the next few minutes, Polka uses every trick in his book to try to capture the criminal, but nothing works. Eventually, Lemmings recaptures Misaki and pauses the fight for a little while to ask her some questions about the asshole attacking him. Initially, Misaki refuses to tell him anything, but then she snaps out of her delusion and cajoles Lemmings into letting his guard down while she bites his finger, hoping to paralyze him with her paralytic fluid. Sadly, Lemmings' bandages were too strong for her to bite into. Despite the setback, Misaki still stabs Lemmings in the leg with a fork infused with her saliva. Shortly afterward, Polka steps up to deliver the final blow on the crazy criminal. He unleashes one of his strongest necromancer spells on Lemmings and ends the fight right there. Moments later, the lights are turned back on and the entire bar area is quiet with trash everywhere. In the aftermath of the fight, Iwa and Arase complain about the outcome of the fight and how unprepared they were for this criminal. Lisa, on the other hand, strolls by to calm their nerves so they don't trash the place a second time. Elsewhere, Lemmings is seen at his boss's office giving an AAR to the head of the crime syndicate he works for. Upon reporting the happenings at the bar, Lemmings the mute moves much closer to his boss and points to a picture on his table as if trying to tell him something. Since he's unable to talk, the boss does his best to decipher what his best agent is trying to tell him. In the meantime, Misaki and Polka discuss the origin story of the criminal who attacked the bar yesterday, Lemmings, with Takumi, who calls the crazy mute a silent but deadly assassin with the ability to slip in and out of any building without leaving a trace. Once they get past that conversation, Takumi talks about the mana Polka expended to dispel Lemmings the previous night, and Polka assures him that he's made up for it already. After hanging up the phone, Polka thanks Misaki as they're about to cross the street for protecting him back there from Lemmings. Misaki tells him not to sweat about it as she was just repaying him for bringing her back to life in the first place. Hearing these words, Polka recalls one of his lessons with his master over a century ago about helping others and not expecting anything in return. After his quick memory recap, Polka makes his resolve and humbly asks Misaki, Takumi, and the real Polka to teach him more about this strange world he's in so he doesn't get into trouble again. Later that night, Lemmings' boss finds out that Polka is still alive. With this new information, he makes new plans to recapture and, if possible, kill him again. The next day, Polka comes up with a business idea and pitches it to his living buddies. Before getting down to the elephant in the room, the doofus shows his peers the other tricks he can do with his necromancer skills. To prove his claim, he possesses Misaki's pen and makes it write some weird things on the sheets of paper in front of them. If this works, then Polka plans on opening a magic shop to sell possessed things to customers. Takumi, who seems to be the only person with a working brain there, calls out his bullshit idea and tells him to think of another way to make money. Just then, the possessed pen cooks up a brilliant idea and urges Polka to open a fortune-telling business. A week later, Polka manages to rake in 100,000 yen just from telling delusional people what they should eat to find the love of their lives. While counting their earnings for the week, the pen cooks up another brilliant idea to increase their scam and make it go worldwide. They would use Polka's powers to communicate with dead relatives of those who want their fortunes read and manipulate the spirit into either trolling the greedy bastards or helping them out. Takumi stops right there to remind the pen that Polka is a man of peace, so taking scams and violence too far might affect his mission in their world. The necromancer stops thinking for a moment and decides to share the dividends with everybody, including Polka, who didn't do shit to earn the money. As their discussion fares on, Takumi lets the necromancer in on the secret life of the real Polka as a spoiled rich kid, but before he can finish his sentence, the real Polka's nephew and niece, Kazuki and Shizuki, show to say hi to their long-lost uncle. Fake Polka freezes and does his best to push those pesky twerps out of his way. He even reveals his nickname from the other world, thinking it'll scare them away, but unfortunately, Kazuki's brain was already developed. So, she gets right down to business and urges her uncle to do some fortune-telling on her future. Instead of indulging the spoiled brat, Polka just tells her to come the next day. This gets Kazuki so pissed that she calls everyone in the room peasants and warns them against toying with her. Takumi, who had experience dealing with classless rich kids, calls her out on her bullshit and makes her nearly spill out her name. Thankfully, her men in black bodyguards were able to stop her from giving away too much information, as they never knew what Takumi could be doing behind the scenes. Kazuki tries to prolong the matter, but then Polka gets up and shuns her before hugging both of them. While he's at it, he sees a ghost begging him to take care of the kids and promises to do the needful before dismissing them. After the weird meeting with the kids, Polka discusses the occurrence with Takumi, calling the ghost he just saw protective with a touch of madness. Takumi asks if he can fully trust the ghost, and Polka says it doesn't matter. Moving on, Takumi hands Polka a file containing information on the Shinoyama group and urges him to learn what he can about the Shinoyama before he visits them the next day. In the file, the necromancer finds out that the real Polka is actually the son of Rozan, the group's current patriarchy, and is also liable to receive a large sum of cash if something were to happen to Rozan. It was then that they all realized why someone wanted him dead. Since they haven't figured the person out yet, Polka will be very careful during his visit. Before the day's over, however, Takumi and Polka choose Misaki to be his bodyguard for the next day. That night, the twins get to meet their terrible uncle, Takeru, who also happens to be Lemming's boss. Takeru scolds them for stepping out late and moves on to ask them about their uncle. They tell him what they know, and Takeru looks forward to seeing Polka the next day. He also warns them to be wary and careful, as they don't know what might happen once Polka shows up at their place the next day. Very late into the night, Rosen himself hears news of Polka's return to their home and looks forward to seeing his son again. The following day, Polka leaves the base early and arrives at the Shinoyama family mansion in time. Upon his arrival, he meets with the two brats from the previous day, Kazuki and Shizuki, who welcome him warmly to the home. At the time, Polka could see a shroud of the spirit begging someone to help the kids, but he kept quiet. Soon after, Takeru, also Polka's nephew and president of Shinoyama Security, shows up to welcome him into the house officially. Before letting him in, Takeru asks Polka about his self-discovery journey, and Polka says he's done with that for now. Moving on, he asks about Misaki, the young lady near him, and Misaki presents herself with such class that even the necromancer in Polka is surprised. Following the weird introductions, Takeru and the kids take Polka and Misaki into the mansion's dining area so they can discuss and eat breakfast. For starters, Takeru asks Misaki about her family business, but then Misaki says it's already 6 feet under since her parents died before she was able to take over. Takeru pays his respects and apologizes while Polka goes over his meeting with Takumi the night before. Apparently, Takumi wanted Polka to understand the weird family dynamics of the powerful clan, as well as how shady their security company could be. He warned Polka about the head of the family security, Takeru, and urged him never to underestimate him at all. Polka soon snaps out of his flashback when Kiri, Takeru's wife, shows up to comfort Misaki. Takeru corrects his wife and urges her not to cause any more harm than good to Misaki's family. Misaki conducts herself properly, leaving Polka in a ditch. As he struggles to keep his cool, Kazuki pops behind him and asks Polka to tell him about the weird plushie doll behind him. Just then, the only unemployed dumbass in the house, Sayo, shows up and explains everything about the toy. As it turns out, Sayo is a freak who's obsessed with sharks, so there's some explanation for why she's like that. As she rambles on about sharks, another random and unimportant relative speaks and welcomes Polka back home. Soon, Polka asks for everyone else, and the twins let him know that most are overseas. As they continue introducing every other person in the family, the head of the family himself, Rozan shows up and urges his son to come talk to him. Before Polka makes his move, the random relative from earlier tries to discuss something with him, but then Rozan shushes him and moves his attention to the prodigal son. After the random relative is out of the way, Polka walks up to his supposed father and calmly apologizes for leaving the house. Rozan acts normal and invites his son into his quarters for a one-on-one discussion. Shortly after breakfast, the twins are seen walking through the hallway disappointed by how calm Rozan was when dealing with Polka. What they didn't know was that the ghost was right behind them begging someone to save them from the fire. In the meantime, Rozan gets entertained by his son in his private quarters. Once they get past all the small talk, he gets serious and asks the imposter in front of him to reveal himself. At first, Polka tried to play his father for a fool, but then Rozan tells him to cut the bull crap and be serious with him. By then, Polka already had a katana by his throat. Unable to do anything else, he exposes himself, clearly impressed by how close a father in this world is to their kid. Rozan continues their conversation by asking Polka to tell him if the real Polka is still alive, but before he can answer that, however, the necromancer senses smoke in the air. He gets up and asks Rozan to let him go so he can save the twins from death. Rozan sees the sense of urgency in his son's eyes. As such, he permits him to leave and Polka jumps out the window. Shortly after he's gone, Rozan talks to the assassin hiding in the ceiling of his room. And a few seconds later, an explosion happens somewhere around the mansion. In the next scene, a flashback is shown to explain what happened on the night when Kazuki and Shizuki's nanny, Suzuka, died. That day, the brats had explored the woods, but then Shizuki dropped her purse in the woods, and Suzuka rushed to the woods to pick it up. On getting there, she finds the crazy random relative from earlier discussing with the fire-breathing bug and makes a sound. Upon finding out they're being watched, the fat bastard stops his meeting with the criminal and chases after Suzuka, who is running back to the mansion to warn the others. Sadly, the fire-breathing bug gets to her and burns her body up to a crisp. The fat bastard passes off the incident as a mere explosion, and even Suzuka didn't realize she was dead until it was too late. Shortly after this explosion, someone shows up to take the twins to safety, and the twins follow the man blindly without verifying his identity. At the city's detention house, Iwa and Arase are seen walking toward the interrogation room to consult a psycho they have in custody, Phantom Solitaire, whose real name is Soramura, or Sori for short. In the meeting, Iwa takes his time to whine at the criminal before pulling up a video of the skeletons in the burning building. He then asks the criminal to explain what was happening there, as nothing about the fire was normal. Having seen the message the fire-breathing bug usually leaves on the walls of its crime scene, Iwa explains his theory to the nincompoop. Meanwhile, Kazuki and Shizuki soon realize that something is wrong with the person taking them to safety when they start getting into places they've never been to before. Unfortunately for them, the man doesn't give them a chance to save themselves as he reveals his true self and prepares his palate for a delicacy. Just as he's about to end the kids, Misaki shows up and kicks the shit out of his cheeks. After that, she assures the spirit that she's there to protect the kids. Seconds later, the criminal removes his fake face and recognizes Misaki as one of the killers from Lisa. Misaki ensures the kids are out of that room before turning to discuss nonsense with the dude with a fucked up face card. After insulting each other aimlessly, the criminal attacks Misaki using fire and electricity. Misaki dodges however she can and retaliates only when necessary. Over the next few minutes, Misaki handles her favorite murder weapon, the rebar, and fights the criminal. Over time, the fire spreads all over the basement and the kids get trapped under. With nowhere else to go, they hold hands and promise to apologize to Suzuka when it's all over. At the last minute, Polka shows up and saves the kids from their terrible fate. After a pep talk from him, Polka lets the kids outside, leaving the cleanup duty to Takaru, who calls his killers to handle the perpetrator. Several miles away, the fat bastard from earlier gets caught by Takaru's special forces and imprisoned. After making it out of the basement, the fire-breathing bug tries to escape after putting on a new face. This time, however, Polka shows up and exposes his real self to the dude. Shortly afterward, Misaki kicks the shit out of him again. Even after getting kicked in the nuts almost twice, the man still gets back on his feet to cause trouble. Polka gives him a chance to come clean and make amends, but as a crazy criminal, the fire breather keeps breathing fire from his claws. Polka remains careful not to expose his true power to the Shinoyama, and this bastard mistakes it as a weakness. Thankfully, Lemmings shows up at the right time to knock him out and take him into custody. After his capture, the fat relative from earlier faces the wrath of Takeru and his killers, who make sure to torture the life out of him for standing against the Shinoyama family. Back at the police station, Phantom Solitaire calls Iwa out on his bullshit and lets him know that the fire breathing is nothing but a farce with props for magic. Iwa keeps quiet in the meantime to think of his next move. As the fake fire-breathing criminal gets transported to the detention facility, the real fire-breathing bug makes his appearance and burns his insides out. Thankfully, no police officers were hurt as the real fire-breathing bug walked over the bridge ahead. Shortly after the fire, Misaki and fake Polka meet with his father in his room to continue their discussion. Before saying any other thing, Polka asks Rozan for some privacy. Impressed by his detection abilities, Rozan empties the room. After that, they continue their discussion, and Polka tells him the truth about his identity and where he's from. At the same time, Takaru is seen in a dark place thanking Lemmings for saving the twins, but then Lemmings lets him know that Polka got there before him. As he elaborates on that, Rozan finally understands some of the weird things he's noticed so far since Polka's arrival. Moving on, he unsheaths his sword, points it at Misaki's throat, and asks to confirm if she was truly the one who killed his son. When Misaki boldly says yes, Rozan is shocked at how confident the girl is. He rambles on for a few seconds before the Sharkborg plushies jump out of Polka's neck to protect Misaki the same way the real Polka would have done if he were there. This action convinces Rozan, so he asks the plushie if he's truly the real Polka. After getting a few nods, the old man just laughs it off and moves on to talk about how absurd the idea was. Eventually, he calms down and presents the fake Polka with a few of his robots that he can possess. Upon checking out the robots, the real Polka calls dibs on the robot, which in a way surprises everyone. In the end, Rozan lets his son's soul stay with them in the safe house. As for Misaki, he lets her off the hook for saving the twins earlier from the fire. Polka thanks his father for the help and takes his leave. About 30 minutes after the meeting, Rozan ruminates on the outcome of the meeting. He realizes that Misaki is an operative for Lisa, so she's best left alone. Besides, if there's anyone in the family coming after Polka, then it's up to him to find out. Moments before leaving the mansion, Polka phones Takumi and fills him in on everything that happened for the day. Takumi scolds him for telling Rozan the real truth, but then Polka isn't too worried about it. After the call, Misaki holds the plushie and genuinely apologizes for trying to kill him in the first place. To the necromancer's surprise, the plushie was pretty cool with Misaki as long as she gave him some time with her 2 chest oranges. Just then, the twins show up to thank Misaki for saving their lives earlier. As for why they acted so coldly to her, the kids tell her they were just scared and didn't want to appear weak. Misaki accepts their apologies and urges them to be stronger next time. Then, the kids turn to Polka and thank him too for not giving up on them. Polka also apologizes and advises them to continue living, as that will make their guardian spirit happy with them. With that said, Polka and Misaki head back home. A few hours later, Iwa and Arase find out about the fire incident with the police car and talk about the real fire-breathing bug in front of Sori. After hearing all he'd wanted to hear, Sori asks Iwa to show him the skeleton video, as he's now more interested in them than ever. Iwa tries to make him trade information for it, but then Sori gets fed up and escapes the facility right after putting the lights out. Before Iwa and Arase could realize it, Sori was already far gone. Moments later, Iwa and his partner hold a meeting with the rest of their task force to discuss the escape of the Phantom Solitaire. After putting the details out there, one of them asks Iwa to explain how he was able to run away under their noses. Iwa gets embarrassed and moves on to talk about the delinquent crimes this overgrown baby had committed in the past. Although they couldn't tie him up to any murders, Sori, aka the Phantom Solitaire, has always been a thorn in the nation's side. His most popular crime to date was when he abducted the Prime Minister in plain sight and every other important personnel in the opposing political party just to create a manga out of the whole scenario. After making a ton of money from this publicity stunt, the Japanese security system became a laughingstock worldwide. One day, the criminal embarrassing everybody suddenly turned himself in. When asked why, he said it was because he wasn't attracting the real magicians and wizards with his stunts. At that point, everybody was shocked at how childish this scumbag was. After watching the lunatic rave on about stupid crap, they arrested him and put him behind bars for good. Well, not for long though, as he's now at large. Up next, Polka gets a radio for 2,000 yen and brings it home for them all to listen to. Upon tuning in, they listen to some breaking news about the arsonist who was fried to death. As Takumi struggles to pull off some valid info online, another reporter takes over the broadcast to let everyone in Japan know that Sorimura, the Phantom Solitaire, has escaped prison. At the same time, Iwa and Arase see the broadcast on the TV and are shocked at how Sori was able to get screen time in the first place. Back at the safe house, Takumi explains the true nature of the Phantom Solitaire to his buddies. He calls the childish grown-up an urban myth who somehow managed to popularize himself with the media. Around that time, the news reporter reveals himself to be the real Phantom Solitaire all along and warns Japan to expect his stunts in a week. With that, he ends the broadcast, and things get back to normal. Iwa and Arase try to figure out how Sori was able to hijack all the TV stations at once. Iwa comes up with a theory and says that the grocer must have helped him out. As it turns out, the grocer is a criminal information broker with answers to almost every logical question asked. Now, the real problem they have to deal with is Sori, who is just like Lisa and can attract troublemakers from far and wide. To deal with someone like him, they will have to be very careful. That night, Sori finally gets to meet the real fire-breathing bug on top of a roof. The real bug, who happens to cover his face with an umbrella, speaks to the deranged Solitaire via phone call. Initially, Sori couldn't understand why the bug would need to call him when they were standing a few feet across from each other. Well, the fire-breathing freak says he's just being cautious. He then asks Sori some questions to figure out the person he is, and Sori lets him know through some demonstrations that he's a person who likes to waste things as he believes that's what makes life worth living. In the next scene, Polka and his buddies discuss Sori and his popularity across all media outlets in Japan. Takumi asks him if there was anybody like that in his old world, and Polka says they had Pirawizo, the venomous dragon of destruction, who was later slayed by Shigrua himself. Takumi takes an interest in the topic and urges Polka to continue yapping on about creatures from his world. In time, they soon realize that his old world and theirs might not be so different after all. Moving back to the roof, Sori continues evading all of the fire-breathing bug's attacks, making sure to let the criminal know that he's well known for being a wasteful person, and he revels in it. Once the fire-breathing bug decides he's heard enough, he lets Sori listen to his philosophies on life. With his life on the line, the Phantom Solitaire apologizes for being an asshole before revealing the trick to his illusion. He appears on the bug's umbrella and expresses how disappointed he is that the bug isn't a magical being. In response, the bug tells him he's not interested in fairy tales. Sori continues to talk about the new presence in Shinjuku causing all these supernatural things and asks the bug if he has plans to take care of it. The fire-breathing bug says yes and invites him to join the occult. Up next, Polka and his buddies continue talking about dragons and everything about them when they suddenly hear a knock on their door. Upon answering it, they find Polka Shinoyama, the unemployed shark lady, and another kid there. Surprised, they ask the unemployed lady to tell them what she is doing at their safe house, but the woman offered them no explanation. Instead, she just hauls her spoiled rich ass into the room and places her shark-themed sleeping bag on the floor like nobody's business. When it's time to explain what she's doing there, Sayo chooses to introduce herself first and explain later. For starters, she calls herself Sayo and calls her assistant Lei, who also happens to be a butler in training. In response, Takumi introduces himself and the other two to the deranged brat. Thereafter, Polka asks Sayo to tell them why she's there to stay with them, and Sayo says it's because her shark props and toys were burned up in the fire. Rather than sympathize with her, Misaki makes fun of her before Lei takes over to show them a message from Rozan himself. In a video, Rozan explains the current situation of the mansion and urges Polka to take care of Soya and Lei. Before ending the message, he lets Polka know that he now has his eye on that building, but there's nothing for him to worry about as it's all for his protection. Polka uses his devil magic and senses a few others around the place. Knowing this, he keeps his cool, but continues thinking about the possibility of Sayo being the person after his life. The next morning, Polka wakes up to find Sayo sulking and wanting more sleep. After having a dull conversation with the girl, Polka finds out how lazy and stupid this rich kid is. Eventually, she gets back to sleep and her so-called butler has to apologize on her behalf. Takumi, who can't take on any lazy ass, decides to clean up one of the rooms they aren't using and transform it into a bedroom for both of them. Sayo gets back up to whine a little bit more before returning to sleep. Lei, on the other hand, tries to let the bunch know that they don't need any special treatment. With that said, he moves on to make some breakfast for everyone. Polka asks him why he was chosen to be Sayo's assistant, and Lei gives him a bullshit reason why. Moving on, Polka asks him to tell him the current state of the mansion as it is. Lei lets him know that the mansion is currently swarming with police, so he should stay off the property till all the smoke goes down. In the next scene, Iwa and Arase visit the mansion to investigate the fire from the previous day. After the necessary introductions, they finally get into a meeting with Takeru, who utterly embarrasses the police by pointing out how incompetent they are at keeping those criminals at bay. First of all, he points out just how dangerous the fire-breathing bug and the phantom solitaire are to the Shinoyama family and asks the police why they haven't caught them yet, despite receiving huge funds from the government over those years. On hearing this, Iwa and Arase just sit there wondering why Takeru's in such a bad mood. After the meeting, however, the duo see themselves out and discuss the killers guarding Takeru during the meeting. Once they figure out their MO, both dudes make plans to throw down with the Shinoyama family if things go their way. Braindead Arase asks his partner to explain things further, and Iwa lets him know about Polka and his involvement in the recent crimes happening in town. If anything, Iwa believes Polka to be the center of all these crimes, and he's willing to do anything to blow the case wide open to expose Polka. As the pair exit the property, Takeru thinks of a way to handle the pesky Iwa. His killers suggest they off the dude, but then Takeru tells them to wait and observe his investigation, as he believes Iwa will eventually expose Polka's secrets. Besides, they still have to worry about Rozan making moves to protect his golden son, so this Iwa situation can wait. Around that time, Polka and the others arrive with the new supplies for Sayo and her butler. Before the day is over, they make sure to set the other room up for their new visitors and see them off to bed once it's late. Hours later, around midnight, Lei jerks awake and listens in on the conversation in Polka and Takumi's room. After that, he gets up and silently creeps up to Polka's door, cursing and calling him an imposter for fooling Rozan into doting on him. Since he doesn't know the truth yet, Lei thinks this fake Polka is an imposter with ulterior motives. Sadly, he was wrong, but didn't know it yet. After a quick recollection of his last meeting with Rozan, Lei gets himself ready to take down the pest leeching on the Shinoyama family. If things go his way, then he'll be able to deal with the real Polka, as well as he's never for once respected such a weakling as Rozan's second son. For some context, Lei's origin story is explained, and it dates as far back as a decade. Back then, Lei lost 4 of his limbs after failing his first job as an assassin and was going to be used as a mere tool to grow poison fungi his clan of assassins use in their missions. Thankfully, before his piece of shit father could do that to him, Rozan showed up and bought the disabled boy like Batman. One would think Rozan was being generous, but in actuality, he only bought the boy to use him as a lab rat in his latest prosthetics experiment. For a while though, Rozan kept the boy and helped him continue training till he was strong enough to become a bodyguard. Now that he's achieved that position, bro didn't want anything to ruin it. In the next scene, Lisa is seen explaining the connections of the Shinoyama family to her 2 lady playthings. Together, the trio brainstorms possible suspects involved in the assassination of Polka earlier, but soon come up with nothing. As per their theory, there's a high chance the suspect is from the family, and it sort of makes sense for them to employ assassins from a mercenary organization to off the poor boy. From there, they move on to discussing the assassin family Lei is from, also noting down the ties they have with the Shinoyama family. Around that time, Lei, who's still at Polka's door, stands silently and listens in on their conversation inside. He hears Polka talking about a dragon from his homeland called Malfi and how she married a guard or something. Lei gets pissed off at the yapping and throws a tantrum. However, he stops when he starts hearing strange sounds in the room. Moments later, Polka, who's already sensed that the boy is behind their door, intentionally speaks to let him know that he's aware of his presence. Lei gets the memo and pauses his stakeout in the meantime. The next morning, Iwa holds another meeting to discuss Misaki and Polka. This time, they focus their attention on Polka and all the weird things he's been doing recently. Arase makes his contributions to strengthen the case, and in time, Iwa reveals the location of Polka's new fortune-telling shop. In another part of town, Sori gets noticed by his fans during his stop at a convenience store. He He stops for some photos till he gets noticed by the cops and is chased everywhere. Concurrently, Polka and Misaki prepare to open their fortune-telling shop for the day, but just when they're about to begin, Iwa and Arase show up to have their fortunes checked by the so-called Polka, the fortune teller. Their arrival sent chills down the spines of everyone in the room, especially Takumi, and Iwa notices. He urges them all to chill and relax since they're on lunch break. By law, they can't arrest anybody during off-duty periods, so it's all cool. With that said, Iwa asks Arase if he also wants to get his fortune checked. Arase tells him no, and they all move to the next room to check Iwa's fortune. Once they all get seated, Iwa whines and teases the kid before asking him to help set his path straight. After hearing all the nonsense the idiot had to say, Polka activates his magic, which changes the color of his eyes. In time, he infuses his mana into the orb in front of him and lets Iwa know that he can't see the future. All he can do is trace paths and read them to get an idea of what lies ahead. Lei, upon seeing the gimmicks Polka was pulling to fool everyone, realizes that the boy must have had his fair share of shit shows in the past. Notwithstanding, the boy observes the two Nimrods who came to get their fortune checks and realizes they might be cops. He takes note of their faces, just in case he needs to snitch later. Moving on, Polka continues using his magic to get a read on Iwa's secret job as a member of the Community Safety Division. Iwa is shocked to see that Polka has done his homework, but he doesn't think it's magic. Instead, he insinuates that the boy must be wearing an earpiece under the hood on his face just to communicate directly with Takumi to get information. At the same time, Takumi searches the net furiously for more information on Iwanomi, as he never really knew the guy worked for the community. As they progress, Polka exposes Iwa's matchmaking business right before talking about a certain emotional wound he's harbored from his past. At this point, Iwa gets serious as he suspects foul play here. To keep the atmosphere light, Iwa teases Polka, telling him to explain how he can heal himself from this so-called emotional wound. Things, however, get serious when the magic spirit-infused pen pops out of nowhere and scribbles a few things on paper. Iwa watches carefully as if waiting for something to happen. Lei notices the same sound he's heard from the room the previous night and wonders if Polka had been practicing the magic trick then. Just then, Iwa loses his cool after seeing the pen write a symbol he's never told anybody before. As it turns out, one of his old friends had told him about the symbol. Before burning it, he'd warned Iwa never to talk about that symbol to anybody else as it could bring problems to the city itself. So how the hell did this ridiculous-looking pen know the symbol? By this time, Iwa was already asking Polka some threatening questions. Polka remains calm and answers the questions. Eventually, Iwa lets him go, pays him, and walks out of the shop with his partner. Before letting them leave, however, Polka tells them his real nickname, the corpse deity, and urges them never to forget that name. Iwa takes note and exits the room, leaving Lei to wonder what the pen wrote on that paper to make Iwa freak out like that. He realizes that whatever it is, it must be tied to Polka's secrets, and he's gonna find out sooner. With this, he offers to go buy dinner for the crew, and Soya permits him to leave the place as long as he buys her some shark stuff on his way back. Lei takes note and leaves. In the next scene, Arase and Iwa stop by a restaurant to have some spicy seafood rice and curry before getting back to work. Initially, there's silence at the table, but then Iwa gets tired of it and tells his partner to talk. Aras then asks him to shed more light on what happened back in the fortune-telling room. In response, Iwa asks for some time to gather his thoughts so he can tell him everything on their walk back to work. Hearing this, Arase keeps his cool and appreciates Iwa for getting himself back to normal. After lunch, they head out to continue their walk back to work. What they didn't know was that Lei was silently stalking them to get more information about Polka and themselves. In another part of town, two Yakuza brutes try to access a safe containing something precious to their crime syndicate. At the time, the fire-breathing bug was burning down their storage house, but they had something they needed to protect. Just as they retrieve the piece of paper, the fire-breathing bug gets to them and burns them up to a crisp. Right after that, he leaves his usual message on the walls and leaves the place to Sori, the Phantom Solitaire. Sori retrieves the weird piece and finds out about the symbol that made Iwa go haywire earlier. With this, he gets the theme for his next public display and gets right down to it. Hours later, after Takumi and the others close shop, the trio settles to discuss why Iwa went AWOL earlier. While Polka explains what happened, Iwa is already at Lisa's bar trying to get information out of her. As it turns out, they both have a mutual friend who used to expose dirty cops, and he went missing 5 years ago. Iwa believes Lisa is the one behind the man's disappearance so far. Not only that, but he knows she has a connection with Polka, and that, in itself, is suspicious. Lisa, who's already seen through Iwa's tricks, plays the fool and asks Iwa to explain further. Iwa only gets even more pissed as he does his best to explain the connection between Lisa and their mutual friend, Hosorogi. At the same time, Polka confesses to knowing about the guy and even admits to his buddies that the soul he trapped in the pen has a similar name. Whether or not it's the same person, he doesn't know that yet. Upon hearing Iwa call that name, Lisa gets nostalgic and asks Iwa why he looks happy and angry at the same time. Iwa says it's because he's been stuck playing the clown for so long. Even at that, he's still only pissed at Polka for being friends with the dark people of the city, and he feels like Hosorogi recruited him to join the Community Safety Division for Children. He feels bad for Polka and angry at Hosorogi for dragging innocents into the dark fuck parts of their lives. Hearing this, Lisa lets him know that she only rents a building to Polka and that's all. She's not involved in whatever he does, but will not pass on an opportunity to connect with him. Having heard all that, Iwa warns Lisa to be very careful in her dealings, but then Lisa asks him why he's so sure that Hosorogi is alive. In response, Iwa says he has too much information about him for him to be dead. With that said, he gets up and leaves the bar after promising to uproot the bastards in the police force, forcing Hosorogi into hiding. Lei, upon hearing the conversation, gets a new lead to investigate the relationship between Hosorogi and Lisa. Back at the safe house, Takumi freaks out when he finds out that Hosorogi used to investigate police corruption and stuff. Well, it turns out the soul trapped in the pen is indeed Hosorogi, and he used to know Iwa and Arase. When asked to provide what it drew on that piece of paper, the pen demanded 1,000,000 yen. Of course, this is outrageous as a soul can't spend money, but then, the pen tells Polka why he's demanding to be paid, and that's because the case involves one of his regrets. At this point, Polka has no choice but to do as he wishes. Up next, Sori visits Grocer in his prison to get information on the symbol he recovered from the Yakuza safe house earlier. For the first few minutes, the duo yap on about information exchange and get serious once Sori provides the symbol and asks for its significance. The grocer collects the piece of paper and moves to talk about the price. After a quick origin story about the grocer, Sori notes down just how powerful the grocer is when dealing with information that could ruin or make great nations. As of now, the only thing the grocer can't trade is people's minds, and he's getting there soon. After giving him a little gift, Sori makes a desperate attempt to make Grocer laugh. Sadly, his jokes are boring, so the grocer only offers him 3 wafer sticks as payment for wasting his time. The shameless Sori takes the payment and chews out the wafers before asking the grocer to at least give him a sample of information. Grocer yaps for a few seconds before finally revealing one of the strokes on the symbol to be a sword. Hearing this, Sori asks Grocer to tell him how much he has to pay to get such information. With his D-Day fast approaching, the entire city lies and waits for what the bastard plans to do. Soya wakes up at noon and mutters some gibberish before noticing the blimps floating outside. Seconds later, everyone, including Polka, sees the blimps outside. Polka immediately recognizes the symbol on the blimps to be one that he's seen before. Misaki notices the concerned look on his face and asks him why he's so tense. Polka tells her it's because that symbol is the exact insignia of the empire that fell in his old world. Before doing anything, Polka takes a moment to remember his master's teachings on how the Empire's insignia was created. After the flashback, Bro keeps himself wondering how Sori got his hands on such a symbol as he thought this world was different from his old one. Minutes after the release of this stunt, information and conspiracy theories spread online with people wondering what the insignia meant, or whether it's meant for public eyes. The only thing that's certain about this event is that there are people who don't like such information being leaked out to the public, so the men behind the scenes act quickly to off this perpetrator. Up next, Arase and Iwa discuss their next move, now that Sori and other criminals are aware of this symbol. If anything, they're sure that Sori might be connected to those people who caused Hosorogi's disappearance 5 years ago, so a symbol of such importance appearing now must mean that Sori and other criminals have him in their crosshairs. For now, though, they stick to their speculations and work on proving them. Seconds later, the granny from the infirmary rushes into the office to let Iwa know that he's been summoned by the Metropolitan Police HQ. Meanwhile, Sori has the time of his life chilling out on one of his blimps while reading the paper and watching videos online. While at it, he recalls the rest of his meeting with the grocer back when he was charged about 3 trillion yen as payment to learn more about the symbol he brought to the scammer. Earlier, Sori had argued against the outrageous price the grocer charged him just for a stupid symbol. However, once the grocer offers his explanation for doing so, Sori understands why he charged that much money for that. Moving on, the man decides to figure out the meaning behind that symbol by himself. Even still, he plans to pay the grocer for his help after asking for the price of flying blimps around town. Now back at the present, Sori continues chilling when suddenly, a sniper bullet from a kilometer away blows his brains out. The snipers who were chilling atop a skyscraper soon realize that they've only shot a dud as the real Sori is seen hiding somewhere else. And although they were disappointed to have failed their mission, they still keep their shit together. Moments after the assassination attempt on his life, the real Sori goes live again and hijacks every TV channel in the country. This time, he points out how an organization was able to analyze police information in just under an hour and send snipers to a vantage point to shut him up, all for a stupid symbol. If someone was ready to commit murder just because of a stupid symbol, then there's more to the symbol than meets the eye. To figure out the true meaning behind the symbol, Sori puts up a bounty and promises to pay the person who deciphers this symbol handsomely. After the live stream, Polka and Takumi talk about fixing this mess. While they're at it, Sayo shows up and demands to know the real truth behind everything. Initially, Polka tries to downplay her suspicion, but it's already too late as Sayo isn't as dumb as they think she is. Over the next hour or so, Polka tells her everything there is to know about him, including information about his old world, hoping she'd only take it as a fairy tale. Surprisingly, Sayo believes the story just because she knows the real Polka all too well. To stop herself from overthinking the situation, Sayo hits the shower to cool off right after promising to keep her mouth shut. Shortly after she leaves, Polka asks Takumi for permission to remove some of Sayo's memories of him to keep their secret safe. Takumi asks him how he plans on doing that, and Polka explains how he uses his magic to remove specific memory parts from victims. Upon hearing it all, Takumi gets worried and asks Polka if that's what he did with the goons and the human not at the beginning. When Polka says yes, Takumi gets scared of him and talks about Misaki. Seconds later, they realize that she's missing. As it turns out, Misaki followed Sayo into the shower to discuss something urgent. With both of them butt naked and the plushy Polka feasting on their curves on the shower shelf, Misaki pulls out her murder weapon and asks Sayo if she knows that she's the one who killed Polka in the first place. Sayo tries to change the subject, but then Misaki pulls her closer and indirectly asks to be punished for trying to kill an innocent boy. Well, Sayo saw through her disguise and called her out for wanting to be punished, even after the person she killed, Polka, had already forgiven her. She just urges Misaki to move on from the crime and stop hating herself so much. At this point, Misaki freezes and watches in awe as Sayo, the supposed brain-dead oaf, spits nothing but facts in the shower. After their bath together, Misaki asks Sayo if she's scared of her. In response, Sayo lets her know that she's not scared of her because she knows Misaki loves sharks. To her, anybody who can sit down and talk about sharks for hours is a good person at heart, irrespective of whatever crime they've committed in the past. Hearing this, Misaki is shocked, but then Sayo explains her plight, and let's just say, Sayo's got a few more screws loose than we thought in the first place. Anyways, after her little outburst, Sayo thanks Misaki for saving Kazuki and Shizuki in the first place. When Misaki laughs her arse out, Sayo pulls her chin in close to her and asks her to tell her about sharks. Once they're fully dressed, Misaki and Sayo return to the living area to discuss their findings with Takumi and Polka. After hearing all the gibberish the duo had to say, Takumi calls Sayo out and asks if she was the one who called the hit on the real Polka in the first place. Well, Sayo gets pissed and lets him know that she'd never do such a thing and not turn the said relative into shark food. When she finds out about the real Polka's soul trapped in the plushy Sharkborg, Sayo gets into a depressed state, worried sick over how awkward things are between the necromancer and Polka himself. In time, she begs Polka the necromancer to sharkify her and let the real Polka borrow her real body. When Polka refuses to do so, they move on to discuss more pressing issues. For starters, they need to know their next move as they believe a shady organization is behind the use of this symbol. Polka feels the need to punish them for defiling the insignia and using it for devilish means. Takumi agrees to his sentiment and moves on to plan their next move. Before doing that, they talk about Sori and anticipate his intentions for making that insignia public. Takumi asks Polka to tell him whether or not someone from his old world came here in the first place. Polka says there's no way he can know since he's been busy in his old world crafting his reincarnation spell. Over time, they discuss Polka's connection with the skeletons he has used so far, and he tells them he set some of them free long before he was named a bad person. Now that he needs information from them, he feels bad going back to call them as he's ashamed to show them the person he's become over the years. At that point, Sayo just tells the man to shut the freak up and trust the ghosts to forgive him for his sins. Polka listens to her advice, and their conversation spirals off for a few seconds. When they get back on track, Takumi chooses to investigate the purpose of the symbol and find out why it matters so much. While he's at it, the possessed pen warns Polka to tread carefully as the police force is more sinister than he thinks. Up next, Iwa arrives at the Metropolitan Police HQ to see the Superintendent General, Jiro Takasu. Upon getting into his office, Jiro makes comments about Iwa's fit and asks to know if Iwa has the guts to do the hard work and solve this case. Iwa remains silent as Takumi and the others figure out who the Superintendent General is. Hosorogi lets them in on a few more secrets, and this makes every one of them even more suspicious of what's going on. Back in the boss's office, Iwa makes his pitch, and Jiro pesters him with some disturbing questions about Hosorogi. Iwa reacts calmly to this and shocks Jiro himself, who takes note of this. As a final note, he warns Iwa to take care and keep his shit together as the next few months will be tumultuous for him. After clearing some other minor information, Jiro talks about their common enemy, Zero. Elsewhere, the man himself, Zero, is seen in a park talking about the hackers trying to get into the police department to a person he calls Nanny. Once he gets the information he's after, he realizes that the person in question is a fortune teller. Sori hangs up and decides to visit this so-called fortune teller so he can have his fortune told. The very next day, the son of a gun visits Polka's fortune-telling shop and listens to a random guy testifying Polka's authenticity to two ladies who just got there for the first time. Upon listening to the man, Sori gets his hopes up and waits for his turn. In the meantime, Polka, while preparing for work, asks Takumi if he's found anything useful about the popular symbol around town. In response, Takumi says he hasn't gotten anything useful yet. Hearing their conversation, the Hosorogi-possessed pen bricks up and scribbles some things on the paper in front of them. From his explanation, it would seem that the culprit running this whole crime syndicate behind the scenes is an actual cop. He was investigating them 5 years ago, but they got to him before he could get them. Takumi and Polka take note of the pen's warnings and continue doing their thing. In another room, Lei is seen making breakfast for Sayo while eavesdropping on Polka and Takumi's conversation. He notices the pause and the scribbles on the table as if one of them were using a mechanical pencil and gets increasingly suspicious of what the crooks are planning. Upon hearing the name Hosorogi the second time in different places, it becomes clearer to him that this person must be pivotal to his investigation. Moving on, the pen tells them about his trusted friend in the force, Iwa, to whom he passed his message before he was killed, and although the man acts like a person who got a few screws loose, he assures them that Iwanome, Arisi's partner's heart, is in the right place. At the Metropolitan Police Department house, Iwanome holds another meeting with his colleagues to discuss Phantom Solitaire, the latest nuisance in town. As he notes down some cliché things about the Nimrod and his symbol, as well as their next course of action, two officers are seen talking smack about him not being fit to be a leader and all that. Arrays, who could hear them, keeps his mouth shut and listens to his boss. About an hour after opening his fortune-telling shop, Polka finally gets to meet the disguised Phantom Solitaire. Although he could tell right off the bat that the old man in front of him was Sori, Polka kept quiet and played the old fool at his own game. After running around in circles, telling him things to fool him further, Polka turns the tables around the dumbass Sori, who is already disappointed in getting his hopes up. When it comes down to it, the old man asks Polka if he can provide any information on the symbol that's been around town. Polka takes a look at the symbol and acts the fool before finally exposing a fatal flaw in its design. He has Hosorogi's pen to draw the original symbol on the paper in front of him and manages to leave an exciting feeling in Sori. Upon finding out about this development, Sori gets so excited that he nearly breaks character. The pen warns Polka not to go too far to reveal any more information, and Polka keeps his shit together. Just as Sori's about to leave, Polka calls him back and asks him about a girl in pigtails sitting in a wheelchair. Hearing this, Sori freezes in his tracks, as he's never told anybody about that lady before. Polka lets Sori know that the girl's soul is already losing its form of speech, but he's sure that she's not happy with the path he's decided to take in life. Sori thanks him for the warning and exits the room, shell-shocked. Outside, the man gets intrigued by Polka's secrets and gets even more interested in knowing the person behind the mask and what they can do. As he prepares to leave, Sori notices two weird ladies frolicking around the place as they step into the rain to head back home. He notices notices the raincoat one of them is wearing, and notes how similar it is to the fire-breathing bug. If he's right, then the bug also showed up to get his fortune checked as well. Right after the meeting with his colleagues, Iwa and Arase meet to discuss the latest update on their pursuit of the Phantom Solitaire, as well as the error on the current symbol everyone knows and loves. Arase asks if they could trust anybody at the Force with such a secret, but then Iwa warns him to be very careful with whoever he moves with so they don't end up going to hiding like Hosorogi did. Besides, catching Solitaire will only help cause those hiding in the shadows to make a mistake and expose themselves. So for now, they do their job and use the officers at their disposal efficiently. As they toast to a new beginning, one of the two bastards talking smack about Iwa earlier shows up to spite him into a pissing contest. Iwa, however, realizes their endgame and gives them a piece of his mind as well. Nearing the end of their squabble, the man almost ends up going physical on Iwa, which is bad news for him as Arase stops him midway and squeezes the life out of his arm. Even after letting Iwa save his butt, the idiot still doesn't shut up. Instead, he moves over to Arase and tries to make him feel bad for a certain illegal sting operation he spearheaded in the past. Arase lets them know that he's already been punished woefully for his mistake, but before the man can utter another word, two other high-ranking officers, Yatsu and Danjo, show up to stop any growing unrest. First of all, Danjo subtly dislocates the idiot's arm and helps him fix it right back up. Then, with a smile on his face, he says hi to Iwa and Arase his way. Soon after, Senior Commissioner Habaki shows up to check up on everyone on that floor, and Donja throws him off their scent. After getting those idiots out of the room, the Senior Commissioner asks for an explanation. Iwa takes him to a separate empty room and explains everything to him. Hearing this, the Commissioner tells him not to be vexed at those dumbasses as they were only trying to let off some steam. Iwa thanks the man for always sticking up for him even when he doesn't deserve it and leaves right after promising to make the police force proud. After leaving, Iwanome joins his other colleagues in the hallway to get right back to work. By nightfall, while reading an update from his investigation, Lei notices movement on their roof and rushes out to check it out. On getting there, he finds the man himself, Sori, raving on like a lunatic as he states his intentions to check Polka out for himself. Without uttering a single word, Lei hides behind a corner and shoots kunai at the Nimrod. Thinking Polka himself was the one who attacked him, the crazy man speaks up and urges him to show himself. Lei pops out of the corner and tells the old man his name. Sori is disappointed to see such a little brat with no importance to his life whatsoever, but he takes what he can get. As the hubbub goes on the roof, the fake Polka is seen sleeping beside his real Polka plushie. The plushie wakes up suddenly after noticing something awry in the room and looks up to see the familiar fiery writings on the wall, signaling that the fire-breathing bug is around. Meanwhile, fake Polka is fast asleep, dreaming about one of his memories from his old world. On that day, he was chilling in the library with his master when he suddenly overheard shouting in the other room. Confused, the necromancer back then tried to investigate what was wrong, but then his master only calmed him down and urged him to get prepared for the fall of the empire. At the end of his dream, she calls him a child to the end and warns him to treasure those he holds dear, as they might not be around long enough. Now that he's become an enemy of the other world, Polka feels sad for disappointing his master's wishes. After bathing himself in some self-loathing bullshit, His Majesty appears in his dream to comfort him. Just then, the plushie jerks him back awake, and Polka soon notices the writings on the wall. He gets up to investigate the burning smell in the room, and realizes that the writings are still hot. Before he can do much, he receives a call from an unknown number. Upon picking it up, the voice at the other end asks him if he's a bastard child of Sabaramond. Now, this is something Polka has only heard in his old world, so he gets concerned that someone like that would know about that term. Still on the roof, Sori continues, trying to get a reaction from Lei, but still, nothing happens. Lei soon gets tired of his babbling and moves forward to incapacitate and capture him. Initially, Sori underestimates him, but after his first attack, Sori soon knows that this guy's not as bratty as he thought. Over the next few minutes, Sori does his best to avoid getting caught in Lei's attacks. A few meters away, atop another building, someone from Takeru's security group phones him to update him on the situation. Having seen the video evidence of what's going on, Takeru sends lemmings to the scene to take care of things between Sori and Lei. In the meantime, the tension grows between Polka and the fire-breathing bug as Polka gets increasingly concerned by how much the odd man knows. He asks him a few questions about his old world, and the man tells him he's none the wiser. In between the calls, call, the fire-breathing bug discusses with his other self to figure out Polka's true nature. Soon he begins to question Polka's humanity, asking him to reveal what he truly is. Polka, on the other hand, uses his magic to sense souls around the building, and soon enough, he finds Lei and Sori on the roof fighting their arses off. After taking another pause, Sori tries to talk himself out of trouble with Lei. Lei, on the other hand, stays pissed at how slow but unpredictable this fool is. Moreover, what is he doing there at the building at this time? Is he there for Polka, or does he have an ulterior motive? Well, Lei was about to find out. After mentioning Hosorogi's name, Lei notices the excitement in Sori and makes progress. Sori, however, commends the little boy for proving to be of use to him. He blurts out something and promises to repay Hosorogi later. This makes Lei concerned as he demands Sori explain further. Sori soon realizes that he's been played for a fool, but he keeps his cool and lies through his teeth to keep his alternate story straight. Lei sees through all the bullshit and wonders if a buffoon like this can pose a threat to the Shinoyama family. After a few more snide remarks, the duo continue their fight. However, just as round 2's about to begin, Lemmings shows up and destroys the aura in the atmosphere immediately. Lei notices Lemmings' arrival and gets concerned about his presence there. He keeps his cool, despite knowing that he's bad news, and asks Sori if he's in cahoots with the mysterious man. Sori continues yapping to get himself out of trouble, but soon enough, Lemmings decides he's had enough. So he turns towards Sori and prepares himself to take him in. Lei sees his chance and attacks him. While the fight occurs, Takeru's henchmen get a little worried about the little guy attacking Lemmings. Takeru, however, assures them not to be worried for Lei's safety, as he's made it clear to Lemmings to leave Lei out of the equation. Currently, Lemmings is very obliged to obey his orders, so nothing's happening to Lei. Around that time, Lemmings remembers his orders and walks towards Sori to capture him. Lei feels insulted that he's ignored, so he uses every weapon at his disposal to stop Lemmings. Of course, Lemmings breaks free of Lei's attacks like they were nothing and continues advancing towards Sori, who makes a desperate attempt to escape his grasp. As he continues yapping for minutes on end, Lei soon realizes that Sori might not be Lemmings' friend after all. After hearing enough from Sori for one night, he decides he's going to off both of them just for the sake of his sanity. As round 3 of their big battle is about to begin, Yatsu and Donja show up outside Polka's safe house and find one of the fire-breathing bug's self just standing there staring at the building. The duo calls her for a discussion and introduces themselves as members of the police force. Moving on, they ask to know what she's doing outside in the streets at 3 a.m., and the lady keeps her shit together. At the same time, the fire-breathing bug hangs up the phone, leaving Polka to run wild with his imagination and wonder what the heck the fire-breathing bug could know about him. After remembering more bad memories of his old world, Polka the necromancer gets pissed and decides to teach those who defile his empire a lesson they'll never forget. He takes another moment to study the situation around his house, and once he's sure of everyone, he cuts himself and uses his blood to create something he calls a netherworld overflow world, using a technique taught to him by his master. In a flashback, Polka's necromancer master, aka the former Baiadian Imperial Court sorcerer, Islil Swordflail, is seen chilling out at the land where the fallen empire used to stand. One of her buddies, Romelka, shows up and bores her to death with yaps and talks of stupid shit. Once Islil's had enough, she shuts the idiot up and continues speaking her philosophy to life. She notes just how long it takes some to mature, pointing out her apprentice, the current fake Polka, and his weird empathetic self towards those he loves. While Romelka insults Polka's nature of being a boy, Islil shuns her and helps her realize that Polka is not an immature boy. She only calls him a boy because he has no will of his own and lives for those he loves. As such, if any of his loved ones should face near danger, then he loses control and becomes much stronger than before. Her exact words play out that night as Polka entraps the whole building in his net. The girl outside could notice the change in the atmosphere and chooses not to be part of whatever's about to happen next. Before leaving, however, she acts normal and lies to the police officers, Yatsu and Donja, telling them that she's there searching for her lost dog with her father. Just then, the other part of the fire-breathing bug, the man, shows up and plays his part nicely. When the cops ask her why she's in a raincoat, she says it's so she doesn't get dirty. Satisfied with their answer, the cops let both of them go. Polka, however, could see the foul play there. He knows the girl's true nature, as he remembers her being there earlier to ask him questions about the symbol. To keep his lab rats at bay, Polka the necromancer extends the reach of his temple to cover a large part of the city. Before doing any other thing, he recalls the first time his master told him about this dangerous technique, including the concept and how to use it properly. According to her, if he can set it up, then those without the evil eyes would have trouble seeing through his disguise. All they might notice is a slight change in the atmosphere. As it turns out, she's correct. As Polka walks inches closer to the roof, he makes his plans to avoid dealing with lemmings directly, and instead focuses on Lei and the son of a gun, Sori. Plushie gets worried and asks Polka how he plans to evade suspicion. At that point, Polka borrows the arms of the souls he's helped in that building, and uses them to create an army of invisible arms. Still on the roof, Sori notices the change in the atmosphere and decides to leave there before it's too late. He tries attacking lemmings with a light attack, but lemmings evades it. As he inches closer to capture Sori, Polka's invisible arms get to him and restrain him for a few seconds. Sori notices the crazy thing happening to the air around the house and takes advantage of it. Polka, on the other hand, decides to take things a little bit more forward. He increases the reach of those invisible hands to extend high up in the sky so they can catch the bastard Sori, who's already flying high up in the sky. Yatsu and Donja see the criminal from the ground but are too stoked to call it in. When strange things were happening, one of Takeru's men sent a video to his boss for analysis. Upon seeing the video, Takeru is shocked to see such a thing happening right in his city. Polka continues maintaining his mana to make sure he keeps his gimmick up. As for Sori, he soon realizes that the fire-breathing bug was using him for some misdirection to talk to the real Polka. For now, though, he chooses to forgive him since he's in such a good mood. As he watches Sori float his way to freedom, Polka strengthens his invisible arms and extends as many as he can outside the building to capture both Lemmings and Sori. For minutes, he chases after both of them but isn't able to capture any of them in the end. After that sorry waste of time and energy, Polka feels happy to have caught one of the fire-breathing bug's selves, the lady. In another part of town, one of the corrupt cops behind Hosorogi's death logs into the forum of the corrupt cops and discusses the way forward with his peers. Having realized the occultic power that might be at play here from the night's events, the corrupt cops all decide to secure the power for themselves. As for Iwa and Arase, they make haste to secure the scene as fast as possible so they can control things. Lisa is also informed of the cops' arrival, so she makes preparations to keep things in order. Elsewhere, a man dressed as a servant walks into a dark room to greet a certain lady who seems to be getting thrills from whatever's been happening in town lately. After surviving the night of terror, Takumi settles down to watch his favorite cosplay YouTuber, Proppen, play dress up and visit the streets of Shinjuku very early that morning to teach the crows how to talk. Nothing seems out of the ordinary for the first half of the stream, when the invisible hands suddenly pop out from Takumi's building, making their way to the stream. Takumi gets curious and nearly spills his drink when he realizes what is happening in the stream. The following morning, Iwa, Arase, and some officers from the precinct gather at Lisa's building to investigate the incident with Solitaire the night before. When they get there, they find flocks of people around the building waiting for some miracle to happen. Initially, they try sealing the place down, but soon realize they need a warrant. In the meantime, Lisa entertains two sibling killers from another intermediary organization led by Mr. Darren, someone she feels she can trust. When she figures out they're from him, she welcomes them into her humble abode, right after warning them to stick by her rules and not go against them. One of the siblings, Rina, gets the notion to act like an asshole, but then Lisa teaches her a lesson she'll never forget. After putting the little bitch in her place, she gets back to business and urges them to stay alert, as she knows things are about to get more serious. Next, Takumi pulls up videos and articles of the invisible hands from the net and shows them to Polka so he can explain himself. Polka fumbles his words for the most part until Takumi speaks up about avoiding more attention. Sayo shows up, and Takumi asks Polka if he thinks the others thought the hands were real. Polka knows Lemmings and Solitaire believed the hands, but as for Xiaoyu Lei, he's not so sure. Around that time, Xiaoyu is seen trying to reach Rozan on his cell, but nothing works at the time. Back downstairs, Iwa and Arase are just about to make their move when they suddenly notice someone they should be careful in the crowd. Inside, Takumi asks Polka if he's sure the person who came earlier was Solitaire. Polka assures him that it's him, but as for the high school girl, he isn't sure what to make of her. After naming a few more odd things about her, Polka chills as Takumi broods over the matter. Soon, he asks Polka to talk about the bastard children of Sabaramond, hoping the terms have ties to his old world. Well, Polka tells him about the first-ranked head court sorcerer of the Empire in his old world, Arius Sabaramond. According to his story, Polka used to be the bottom feeder in the sorcerer rankings of the Empire, and this Arius guy used to be a very nice guy with an inclination to politics. One time after receiving a scolding from his stupid master, Arius showed up to defend him and give him hope that he can be strong just like them in his lifetime, if not more than them. Simply put, Arius Sabaramond was a celebrity in the Empire back then, as people from far and wide would mostly travel just to be in the same room as him. Upon stating the fact, Polka continues wondering what the fire-breathing bug dude has to do about all this. Since he doesn't know what Arius did after the Empire fell, there's no telling if these so-called bastard children of Sabaramond groups are part of the Empire. For now, though, he keeps his head down and observes the situation. In another part of town, a redhead who calls himself Higuro is seen making a call to one of his superiors from the Sabaramond Aegis Agency, informing him of the updates in the case they're pursuing. Once he's done with his call, he meets with a few bastards planning an attack on the city and takes them all down with his trusty assassin, Momoya Agakura, who also looks like the servant from earlier. After taking them all down, Momoya himself, one of the most important assassins from the assassin clan, Agakura, plays with his kills right before phoning his sister to ask how things are on her end. Contrary to what he thought, his elder sister felt disappointed at how easy it was to take down her targets. Once she's done sulking, she instructs her baby brother to move to Shinjuku so he can take on his next assignment. Momoya gets very excited at the thought of meeting more people. Meanwhile, Xiaoyu finally manages to get to Rozan via a secure line. While on the phone, he rants to Rozan about the fake Polka and his dealings with Solitaire and Lemmings the other night. After listening to his rants, Rozan speaks up and lets Xiaoyu know that he is aware of fake Polka's secrets. However, he can't tell him anything now since he wouldn't even accept anything he says. Xiaoyu tries to get Rozan to tell him everything, but then Rozan just tells him to trust him and do his job well next time. Also, if he's chanced, he advises Xiaoyu to talk to fake Polka one-on-one so he can understand the dude a little better. Now this goes against everything Xiaoyu stands before, but he promises his master to try it one day. A few hours later, Higuro and Momoya arrive at Shinjuku and spot Xiaoyu Lei holding his phone up on a building. Although they had plans to keep quiet in the meantime, Momo was still excited to see a familiar face. As for Iwa and Arase, they continue chilling and waiting for their breakthrough while Takumi and Polka continue yapping upstairs. Moments later, Misaki shows up with anybody's worst nightmare, a media personnel who's damn good at her job, Kochu. While Misaki is a dumbass who thinks being on the news is a good thing, Takumi knows they can't risk getting their asses exposed to the media. The company Kochu works for is called The Weekly Dry, and they cover everything and anything from video game, exposes to crime and shitty people. At the time though, both real and fake Polka don't know Kochu's true nature, so they treat her as a normal person would. The only person with a working brain in the room is Takumi, and he already has his table full of shit. Kochu tries to clear the tension in the air by telling them she's only there to investigate the fortune teller. Takumi, however, sees through her disguise and refuses the interview, but then Kochu threatens to expose Takumi's shady business of flying drones around the neighborhood if they do refuse the interview. In the end, the bunch is left with no choice but to do her bidding. Takumi weighs his options well and decides he's going to keep Kochu's attention on them and not Lisa. As for Kochu, she was busy remembering Takumi's story as she thought it'd be a sweet scoop for her publication. For now though, Takumi isn't her target, so she'd better focus on the fortune teller. Earlier that day, Kochu had taken permission from her tired old boss to get a piece written on the fortune teller in Shinjuku. Initially, the boss didn't think there was anything worth writing there, but after a few minutes of convincing, he finally let her do her thing. With the stage for the interview set, Kushu readies her recording equipment and asks the fortune teller Polka to be receptive so they can be done quickly. After clearing a few more things with her, the interview begins. Before saying anything, Kushu takes note of everything that's transpired that hour and figures something's wrong somewhere. For starters, she asks them about the weird writing on the wall behind her. Misaki nearly snitches on them, but then Takumi and Sayo lie to keep them afloat. Having seen through their lie, Kuchu gets serious and plans her next questions carefully. In the meantime, Lemmings reports to Takeru and lets him know just how tired and worn out he is from the fight against Solitaire. Takeru, upon hearing him, gives him the rest of the week off so he can rest and prepare for his main job the next week. Lemmings thanks him and exits the room. Shortly after he's gone, Takeru instructs Taipei, one of the Lei family's assassins, and his partner Bao to investigate Xiaoyu and find out what he knows about Polka's secret. After muttering a few more nonsensical words, Takeru warns his buddies never to underestimate the police force. At the same time, Jiro takes note of Takeru's sleazy tactics and plans his next move. Once she's done with her interview, Kuchu calls her chief and lets him know that things are going to get more interesting. In a darker place, Momoya is seen standing on top of a corpse he beheaded just moments earlier. From the looks of things, Urai, Nishida's friend, back to Lisa, and although he was pretty shaken by everything that's happened, he's keeping things cool. As for the cops who came right after the body was planted, Takumi suspects them to be in cahoots with the dirty cops they've been investigating so far. Before he can make any more valid points, Takumi spots Arase and Iwa outside the building and runs to hide from them. Once dinner's done, Xiaoyu serves them. Just as they're about to eat, the good cops show up and Iwanome asks Polka if he knows what Solitaire came there to do. Polka plays dumb initially, but then Hosorogi's soul in the pen speaks up and lets him know that he can trust Iwanome to be a good cop. Moving on, Iwa talks shit about Polka's fortune-telling and guilt trips him for not letting him talk to Hosorogi's soul. Polka takes offense at his words and stops telling him shit. Iwa sort of begs Polka to let him in on the scoop before it's too late, but before that, Polka tests Iwanome to confirm that he isn't working for the other side. As the interrogation goes on, Momoya and Higuro track Takumi to his private hideout to capture him, fully knowing that the spineless coward won't fight back. As for Iwa and Arase, they take a walk after the interrogation, discussing their next move. To prevent their plans from leaking out to the enemy, they need to be discreet with their actions. Soon enough, rain starts falling and the duo rush to their places. In the meantime, Higuro finally gains access to Takumi's condo right after Momoya ties him up. Rather than getting scared for his life, Takumi demands that Higuro, his former boss, state his intention. Higuro picks up a few pens and stabs them into Takumi's thighs before leaving the doofus to writhe in pain while he interrogates him. As Takumi's screams get louder, Higuro asks him to tell him how they were able to hide the body before it was found. Apparently, they'd hid the body in the basement just so the cops would find it there and label every single occupant in that building a criminal. Now their plan has been thwarted. Higuro wants to know how they did it. Before he gets his answer, Misaki shows up to rescue poor Takumi by attacking the only real threat in the room, Momoya. Momoya defends against most of her attacks and only pauses when she does. After about 5 minutes of fighting, Misaki finally exposes herself to Momoya. Momo, who's been waiting for his chance to strike, uses his long blade to slice Misaki in half. Takumi could not believe his eyes as he never thought Misaki would die like this. Higuro makes his comment on the girl and receives a phone call from his employer. Upon answering the call, Higuro apologized for taking too long to respond and promised to deliver the merchandise safe and sound. Meanwhile, Polka finally finishes using his first set of gemstones to upgrade Misaki from a zombie to a vampire larva. As Higuro and Momo exit Takumi's house, Xiaoyu stalks and follows them to their rendezvous point. A few minutes after getting sliced in half, Misaki is resurrected as a vampire larva. Once her transformation is complete, she takes in her new reality and tracks down Higuro and Momoya's vehicle. While she's at it, she recalls one of her memories with Lisa 10 years ago. That time, Lisa noticed Misaki rarely smiled and asked her about it. The poor kid said she forgot how to smile. To help her out, Lisa told her to do something she'd watched someone do before in her life, and the best thing Misaki could come up with was killing. Now that she knows just how similar she is to her old self, Misaki spreads her vampire wings and attaches herself to the van. Momoya notices the attachment from the sounds up on the roof, so he stabs it with his sword, making Misaki lose them. Even at that, she still tracks them down using her heightened senses and yaps all the way there about how happy she is to have such a wonderful body as a vampire. When they get to their destination, Higuro engages Takumi in a conversation to keep him from sleeping. While they're at it, Takumi insults Agakura Momo and tells him to his face that he's a piece of shit. Higuro lets him know that he's no longer the Higuro they all knew and loved. Now he's in cahoots with one of the strongest clans on Earth, and Takumi is allied with the Lei clan. Takumi asks him what he means, and Hirugo exposes Xiaoyu as an assassin working for the Shinoyamas, an interesting development that surprises the all-knowing Takumi himself. At the same time, Xiaoyu is seen hiding in the ceilings as he wonders what his next course of action actually is, as he's better off avoiding Momoya if he doesn't want to die. He's going to rescue Takumi to make the fake Polka indebted to him. As the interrogation continues, Higuro continues pointing out just how useless and spineless Takumi's life has been in the past. He figures since Takumi is scared of reality and pain, then getting information out of him is the easiest. For now, he asks Takumi to tell him what he was doing in that infamous building, threatening to shoot parts of his body if he refuses to say a thing. While that happens, Lisa and her girls continue talking about Takumi's new connection and a way to solve his fear and low tolerance for pain. Having heard everything his former master just told him, Takumi talks smack and gets shot in the leg as a final warning. As Takumi endures more yapping, he recalls something Polka had said to him in the past, and reminds himself that it's all gonna be okay. When it comes down to it, Takumi still calls bullshit for the third time in a row. This got Higuro thinking about what happened, as the Takumi he knows is usually too scared to even feel pain. To make him feel even more pain, Higuro pours some hot sauce on his gun wound and asks if he's ready to talk now. When Takumi jokes around the fourth time, Higuro picks a screwdriver and sticks it into the wound to cause more pain. While he's at it, he talks about making Sayo his next target, but then Takumi warns him against making an enemy of the Shinoyamas, and Higuro says not to worry as his bosses will cover up for him. Just then, Xiaoyu pops out from the ceiling and captures Takumi now that he's found a reason to leave him alive. In the meantime, Iwa and Arase report their findings to the senior commissioner, Habaki, who tells them to take things easy and promises to look further into the solitaire case. Speaking of solitaire, Jiro, the superintendent general himself, gets a knock on his door, but upon checking it out, he finds nobody there. However, when he gets back into his office, he finds the phantom solitaire sitting on his chair, ready for a yap session with the boss himself. For starters, the idiot talks about people and how different they can be in private before moving on to talk about Joker cards and how they matter in the conversation. His philosophy centers on the various ways people show their true colors, including the Jokers, who are the same kinds of people both in private and in public, and Solitaire is not shy to talk about them. Shortly after saving Takumi from certain death, Xiaoyu shows his face to the confused dumbass who asks to confirm if everything Higuro said earlier was true. Xiaoyu ignores the fool since now's not the time for chit-chat, and gets down the platform he's on to fight Momoya. When both assassins finally face each other, Higuro steps aside to provide some room for them to enjoy themselves. Xiaoyu draws first blood, but Momoya blocks it. Before the next attack, Momoya stops to warn Xiaoyu about the dangers of engaging him in a one-on-one fight, as it can prove deadly for him. He then makes a rude comment about his missing limbs and points out Xiaoyu's shaking legs. Contrary to what Momo believed, Xiaoyu's legs weren't shaking from fear at all. Instead, they were powering up for one of his fastest attacks yet. Xiaoyu lets Momo entertain for a few more seconds till his prosthetic legs are ready to rumble. Once it's time, Xiaoyu disappears in a flash and attacks Momoya's blind spots. Momoya quickly adjusts his sights and manages to predict Xiaoyu's path. Once he's gotten the hang of it, he captures the poor dude, hauls him in the air, and readies himself to slice him in pieces. Thankfully, before Xiaoyu was minced to pieces, Misaki the vampire shows up to kick the 2-meter-tall buffoon to the moon. With the attacker down for a while, Misaki takes her time to fondle Xiaoyu like the little boy he is. Higuro, on the other hand, struggles to believe his eyes. The girl they just sliced in half an hour ago is somehow not only back to life, but even stronger than before. He begins to fear for his life as his enemies increase in strength by the second. If one thing's clear though, it's that he has to report this development to his superiors as per his instructions. As 1,000 thoughts run through his head, his partner Momoya gets back up, shocked and happy to see the girl he killed back up and more powerful. To match her strength, he releases the restraints on his clothes, takes a new stance, and invites her to come for him. Before doing anything, Misaki teases him for his long legs and Momoya giggles a little. Once it's time to fight, Momoya attacks both Misaki and Xiaoyu faster than the speed of sound. While Xiaoyu couldn't keep up, Misaki had no problem seeing through his tricks as she dodged all his attacks gracefully. Her little choreography goes on for a little while and ends right after she dodges a close call. Knowing fully well that she can't defeat the man alone, Misaki calls Xiaoyu to work with her to bring him down. Before saying anything, Xiaoyu gets concerned for Misaki as he can't hear her heartbeat anymore. As for Momoya, he keeps wondering how Misaki was able to dodge his perfectly timed attack. Misaki only ends up laughing at the fool for acting his natural-born talents out. Back at the safe house, Polka and Sayo are seen talking about Misaki's new powers as a vampire larva. While she's pretty strong and highly regenerative, she's still not a full vampire yet, so she had better be careful. Once round 2 begins, Misaki fights Momoya with Xiaoyu this time. When they pause for a breather, Xiaoyu figures out Momoya's true power type. Apparently, the dude uses his clothes and long limbs to fool his opponents into thinking of useless defenses and strategies while planning his attack. Once Misaki figures this out, she cuts her forearm holding the crowbar and yeets it at Momoya. Momoya, who had trouble processing what was going on, gets hit for the first time and analyzes the strength of the throw. While Polka and Sayo discuss telling Xiaoyu everything, Polka gets asked for a favor by Hosorogi's spirit in the pen. While he attends to the pen, Solitaire is still seen at Jiro's office lecturing him about human nature. Somewhere around the local police building, Iwa gets a phone call from a restricted number. After picking up and discussing with the person on the other end for a few minutes, he soon realizes that it's Hosorogi speaking. Elsewhere, Kuchu is seen staring furiously at her PC as she tries to connect all the dots around her recent case. From what she's discovered, Lisa was abducted when she was younger, and the police officer who solved her case is none other than the one who went missing, Hosorogi Miyabi. Having heard his dear friend's voice for the first time in a long time, Iwa stutters with his speech for a little. Eventually, Hosorogi gets him to calm down and listen. Now back to normal, Iwa asks the person on the phone to prove they're the real Hosorogi. The spirit in the pen lets him know that he's the real deal. When Iwa asks to meet, Hosorogi refuses to do so as he's in no good physical shape to see Iwa. To even make this work, Polka had to stab a dead pigeon's vocal cords with the possessed pen before using some magic spell to make it work. Once they move past that, Hosorogi explains why he has someone like Polka on his team, and also urges Iwa to remember that they're running out of time. Before hanging up, he speaks about the clues he left in his final message to Iwa and tells him that they have to be ready to counter the enemy's attacks to protect Lisa. Iwa argues a little with his old friend, and then moves on to ask him for the information he's been wanting to pass across. When Hosorogi tells him about the person at the heart of the corruption in the police force, Iwa's jaw drops as he doesn't think Hosorogi is telling the truth. Up next, Jiro decides he's just about had it with Solitaire's blame game. He knows the stupid man is just trying to rile and see if he's one of those corrupt bastards destroying the police force. Well, he responds to Solitaire's insulting jokes and lets him know that he's not a mastermind. Even still, Sori remains steadfast in his belief, and Jiro asks him to divulge why he thinks he's such a bad person. At this point, Solitaire shuts the hell up, as he realizes that the Superintendent General is a good man with a thug-like face. With that said, Momoya and the other two protagonists take a moment to discuss strategy before moving to round 4. Misaki cooks up a diabolical plan and relays it to Xiaoyu, who's pretty skeptical about the sanity of the plan. Once they're past the planning phase, Momoya calls them back to order and continues fighting them. For the first half of the 4th round, Misaki dodges as many of Momoya's attacks as usual. Then, she makes an intentional mistake which Momoya doesn't see through. She lets herself get caught and then waits for Xiaoyu to stab through her guts with his prosthetic hands just to catch Momoya by surprise. Once Xiaoyu gets his cue, he captures Momoya and shocks the M out of his name to knock him out. With their main enemy down, they search the place for Higuro, but he's nowhere to be found. Xiaoyu struggles to understand Misaki's new form, but he keeps himself cool. Not long after the fight, Higuro is seen wearing a disguise as he waltzes through the train station, thanking Momoya for creating a diversion big enough for him to slip out. Now that he's free, he phones one of his superiors at the local police building to tell him about Misaki's ungodly transformation. The moment he places the call, Yatsu's phone rings and he checks the number. Upon recognizing the number, he refuses to pick up the call. Meanwhile, Iwa continues his conversation with Hosorogi on the phone as he tries to understand why the man would suspect such nice people to be bad cops. After giving him a breakdown of his investigation, Iwa finally calms down and talks normally. As Hosorogi's about to hang up the phone, Iwa asks him how he knows he's not a spy. Hosorogi does what Hosorogi does best, and that's scolding the life out of Iwa. After he hangs up, Arase tests his boss to see if he's still sane. Once Iwa passes the test, he heaves a sigh of relief. As they're about to continue talking, Iwa receives a call from Sori, the Phantom Solitaire, offering to provide information on the so-called mastermind he just discussed with Hosorogi. Initially, Iwa gets a little restive, but then the crazy man lets him know that he has eyes everywhere. After Hosorogi hangs up the phone, he turns to Polka and Sayo and apologizes for pulling them into his shit. Moving on, he asks them to believe in Iwaname's will to do the right thing and expose the bastards in the force. Once he's done with the solitaire call, Iwanome rushes toward one of the perpetrator's offices to confront him. At the same time, Yatsu's phone continues ringing and he excuses himself to pick it up. There, He warns Higuro never to call him while at work as it's against the rules. Higuro, however, tells him everything he's seen so far and waits for his response. For now, though, he will lay low till the Shinoyamas lose sight of him. As Iwa and Arase approach the office, they overhear the person inside talking about Sabarimond Aegis. Iwa gets pissed at a point and forces the door open. Almost immediately, the person on the other side of the door starts talking rubbish into the phone. Iwa, on the other hand, faces the senior commissioner, Habaki, and asks him why he would stab him in the back like that. Elsewhere, Takumi and the others soon notice how still Momoya is, and as for Yatsu, he gets the chill feeling of something happening behind the scenes of the precinct. In another tunnel around town, Momoya's elder sister is seen trying to reach her brother via a phone call. Since he didn't pick, she decided she was going to have to scold him when she found him. Still in Jiro's office yapping his arse out, Solitaire hears a phone ring in a secret compartment near Jiro's desk. Once he fishes the phone out, he continues trying to implicate Jiro before picking up the phone. Jiro, who isn't scared of anybody, urges him to pick up the phone call by pressing the red button so he can find answers to his stupid questions. Well, Sori takes him up on his bet and answers the phone. On the other end of the line, Grosser's voice emanates through the speaker, and he greets both Solitaire and the Superintendent General, before moving on to tell him one of the two things he's having for him that day. For starters, he lets Jiro and Solitaire know that Iwa has finally established contact with the lost officer, Hosorogi, and is speaking to him at that moment. Mind you, the call Iwa received from Solitaire hadn't been placed yet. This news shocks both men since they thought Hosorogi was dead. As for the second piece of news, Grosser exposes Habaki as the mastermind of the Sabarimond Aegis secret agency in the police force. Jiro thanks Grosser for the call and wishes him farewell. After the call, Sori tries to buy the direct line to Grosser, but then Jiro lets him know that his number isn't for sale. Jiro says it's only traded by barter when the criminal tries to guilt trip him. With that said, Jiro reminds Sori that he's already found his mastermind, so he can do whatever he wants with the information. Again, Sori refuses to let Jiro go just yet. Before concluding his meeting, he asks Jiro to sell him Iwa's number, and judging by what happened after, it seems Jiro sold it to him. About an hour later, Takumi phones Polka and warns him to be very careful that night as there's no telling what could happen. Right after hanging up, a horde of fire-breathing bugs flood the entrance to the abandoned warehouse they're at. In the meantime, Iwa and Arase confront Habaki for mentioning his contact's name and betraying the entire police force. When they ask him to provide valuable information about Sabarimond, the man gets scared. Iwa and Arase get closer to threaten him, but then stop when they notice the two oddly dressed policemen at the door to Habaki's office. In time, the policemen, as well as a few other employees, become mini fire-breathing bugs, and they all move towards Habaki's office to see the man who just mentioned Sabarimond. At the same time, the weirdo count at the abandoned warehouse Takumi and the others are increasing by the second, and their singing becomes even more deranged. As for Iwa and Arase, they have trouble understanding what the heck is happening to these creatures, but they keep their cool to study the surroundings first before doing anything stupid. Back at the warehouse, Momoya's elder sister, Majiri Agakura, shows up outside to find the horde of fire-breathing zombies singing like bastard children. She smiles at the symphony of their songs and calms them all down. After mentioning a few words to soothe their revenge-driven soul, the zombies finally let her pass through their midst. As they waltz through the horde, Majiri warns her entourages not to fight those people in the raincoats, as they won't be able to crush them all even if they try. Around that time, the horde in the office gets increasingly aggressive as they all try to see Habaki and probably burn him for speaking the cursed words. Thankfully, Iwa and Arase do a good job keeping them out of the office. Jiro, on the other hand, orders Sori to pay him for letting him go by giving him valuable information. Sori does this by telling him a thing or two about the reality of the fire-breathing bugs, telling Jiro that the bugs are nothing but a product of technology without common sense. At that time, one of the zombies trying to get into the office starts a small fire. Iwa notices this and puts it out before ordering Aras to go all out to keep these zombies at bay. While Aras is at it, Iwa recalls one of his memories with the coroner at the morgue to figure out how the fire-breathing bug leaves his messages without being in the location. If his memory's correct, then it must mean that the bugs fire lasers or something pointy with a hot source of light at the target. Before he knows it, the door closes and some type of gas is released inside the room. Iwa covers his nose and continues racking his negative IQ brain to figure out what's at play here. Sadly, the answer doesn't come as quickly as he thought it would. Back at the abandoned warehouse, Xiao Yu gets increasingly worried when the singing from outside stops. Just then, he notices someone coming through the front door and alerts the others. Seconds later, Majiri shows up with her people and stops to say hi to Xiao Yu, her assassin. Xiao Yu, upon noticing her, attacks her, but she breaks his prosthetic hands and asks Xiao Yu to join the Agakura clan to have his limbs back. For some context, Xiao Yu had first met Majiri and her tall brother, Momoya, on his first mission to eliminate a small-time target. Apparently, they both had the same targets, but the Agakuras beat him to the chase. Rather than just abort his mission and report it as complete, dumb Xiao Yu fights the Agakuras alone. After impressing Majiri with his skills, Xiao Yu is invited to join the Agakura clan. Upon refusal, Majiri removed his real limbs and fixed him up so he wouldn't bleed out and die. When Xiao Yu woke up, he found all 4 of his limbs in Majiri's hands like trophies. Back then, Majiri told him to call her if he needed help, and she would come running. Also, if he wants his real limbs back, then he should consider joining her clan. Now that she's back in Japan, Xiao Yu is scared of what she might do. Majiri asks if he's ready to join her family yet, but then Xiao Yu gives her the shock of her life when he tells her the Shinoyamas already saved him. Hearing this, Momoya gets back to life and laughs at his sister for wasting so many years trying to recruit someone who didn't want to be saved. Majiri takes offense at Momo's words, but then chooses to scold him later as he's in pretty bad shape. At that point, Momo laughs and warns his sister to be wary of the girl that's above her. Before she could react, Misaki attacked her from above. Sadly, she was too slow for the all-powerful Majiri, who bit her rebar and sliced her in half. After reattaching her lower body with her upper one, Misaki gets acquainted with Majiri, who's already super impressed by her vampiric skills. She tries recruiting Misaki to join the Agakura clan, but Misaki politely refuses the invite. Majiri prepares herself for round 2, but then she notices her brother bleeding profusely and decides to help him out, leaving Misaki to Dahlia. After keeping Misaki at bay for a few seconds, Majiri recovers her little brother and greets everybody farewell before walking out of the place. Takumi asks the others to follow her, but unfortunately, everybody's had their fair share of horseshit for one night. Also, Misaki lets everyone know that Majiri is much stronger than what they give her credit for, so they shouldn't take her lightly. In the next scene, Hibaki starts to lose hope now that the fire-breathing bug knows what he looks like. Iwa tries to talk some sense into his head, but Hibaki's already far gone since he's inhaled some certain powder from a container near him. He soon lets loose and becomes much stronger than his original self. Once he gives Iwa a nice smackdown in the face, he gets back up and starts talking nonsense about the world getting a glory hole, or some shit like that. Iwa and Arase get the notion that their boss is high, but before they can do anything, the other zombies finally get the door open. Back at the safe house, Polka and Sayo study the lightning in the sky as it is raining. Once their facts are checked, the duo discuss the elementals of his old and new world. Sayo asks Polka if he can make a deal with lightning elementals to cast spells based on lightning, but Polka says he's not an elementalist, so doing such a thing would be suicidal for him. Although some geniuses mastered such techniques, most of them are nowhere to be found. Elsewhere, a redhead harvests the lightning powers and pisses off his subordinates who are wet from the rain. The man gets down to the roof and starts mumbling something about wyverns and mythical creatures from his old world. From the looks of things, it seems the man is from Polka's old world, as he had the same viral symbol etched on his fabric. After observing things for so long, the man finally steps onto the stage to welcome the other stage magician from his old world. Before fighting the monster in front of him, Iwanomi remembers one of his memories with Hibaki back when he tried looking into Hosorogi's disappearance. At that time, Hibaki was pretty pissed at him for trying to figure out what happened to Hosorogi. Iwanomi thought the senior commissioner was only trying to help and didn't even think anything of the warning. Iwanomi respects Hibaki's wishes for his lost daughter and promises to be less obvious next time. Having heard him apologize, the commissioner promises to see his job through to the end. At the time, Iwa thought nothing of Hibaki's words. Now that he's found out what a piece of shit human Hibaki is, he knows what he has to do. First things first, he asks Hibaki about his daughter, to know what happened to her in the past, but what he hears from Hibaki next is just straight up inhumane. Apparently, the shithead traded his daughter just to get to that position in the occult group, Sabarimond Aegis. As the fight's about to begin, Yatsu shows up and gets his partners out of the room. Seconds later, they all gather in the corridor with Donja and a few other officers they captured earlier. Hibaki shows up in front of them and appears to be on a call with someone ever since. Before the good cops can do anything, the lights go out, and Hibaki tries to escape. Donja and Yatsu try to hold him down, but then a suicidal cop approaches them with his handgun and points it to the good cops. Yatsu gets up to defend the others, but this makes them lose hold over Hibaki. Hibaki thanks the corrupt cop and escapes the building in real time. Once the cop's done with his mission, he kills himself and the lights come back on. Iwa could remember the cop's face from the basement search, but he still instructs Yatsu and the old man to go after Hibaki. After they're gone, the other zombies show up ready to strike Iwa and Arase. Just as they're about to do so, the zombie effect wears out and they're all back to normal again. Confused, the people who were previously zombies try to understand what is happening, but then Iwa realizes the fire-breathing bug's secret to be hypnosis all along. Outside, Donya separates himself from Yatsu and gets somewhere to make a call to a certain contact of his. In the meantime, Hibaki finds himself on top of a random building searching for someone. Minutes after searching, he finally gets to see the redhead from earlier, the supposed mastermind behind everything that's happened. He greets and thanks the all-powerful master of the occult and hopes he's been noticing everything he's been doing in the police force. In response, the redhead lets the idiot know that his daughter is pretty pissed at him for leaving her in such a dangerous laboratory to be used as a lab rat. That nonsense talks about trading his daughter to get to that position was him donating his only child to be used as a lab rat, all because of his shitty selfish dreams. Initially, Hibaki couldn't understand what the redhead was trying to tell him, as he was under the notion that his daughter died from the dangerous experiments performed on her. However, the redhead makes it clear to him that his daughter happened to be the first and only survivor so far. Before he knows it, a buff, scar-filled woman who calls herself Ara Hibaki shows up behind him and punches his head till it bleeds. Then she helps her father remember just how sorrowful things were for her at the laboratory, and lets him know that she's there for revenge. The funny thing is that if Hibaki had even thought to visit her even once after dumping her to the sharks, then she might have forgiven him. But as we all know it, shit people will forever be shitty people. Hibaki tries to attack his daughter since it is already too late to understand each other, but then Sawara, aka the huge buff woman, breaks his arm and feet like they were nothing, leaving the redhead to enjoy the show. After punching her father more than 15 times in the head and neck, Sawara finally holds him up to strangle him. What she didn't know was that the little twerps that just joined Lisa's team, Rina and her elder brother, were at another vantage point with a sniper scope at Hibaki's head. Before they shoot, Hibaki tries to beg for another chance to search for the sorcerer from the other end of the sky. Thankfully, the redhead isn't known for giving second chances. Just then, Rina shoots Hibaki in the head, killing him instantly, and lets Lisa know the job's complete. Upon hearing that, Lisa leaves the bar for Polka's place, and the redhead gives Sawara 3 minutes to find and beat those who shot her father in the head. Sawara wastes no time locating them, and she makes sure to get to their level before they get away. Rini tried to stop her with gunshots, but Sawara was just too strong to be beaten by a mere gun. Once she's face to face with the kids, she mutters a few things before she's yeeted up into the air by their reinforcements. With more people to fight now, Rina frowns and complains. Rine's brother remembers the reinforcements to be from Lisa and chuckles at the thought of such a thing happening. Sora gets distracted for a second there and soon realizes that her master is gone. Upon arriving at Polka's safe house, Lisa asks to borrow his power as there's someone she wants to speak to. She then notices Sayo and introduces herself as an intermediary for the assassins. She tries to be subtle when referring to Polka's powers, but then Polka tells her that Sayo already knows the truth. Hearing this, Lisa is shocked, but she warns Polka to be careful about who he relates with as there's a bounty on his head currently, being the heir to the Shinoyama Empire. At the same time, Taipei, the large fool, updates his boss on the current situation at the safe house. After learning that Lisa's in the building, Takeru tells him to keep quiet and only interfere if things get violent. Up next, Lisa gets more upfront with her request and asks Polka to follow her somewhere. Polka gets worried about Sayo's safety, but then Lisa assures him that Taipei is there to watch over her. With that, Polka follows Lisa to the top of a building. Meanwhile, Iwa and Jiro finally meet to discuss Hibaki and his violent tendencies. Iwa asks his boss if he's always suspected Hibaki to be the mole in the force, and Jiro says not really, but he's always known someone higher up was working for the enemy. The only time they were close to exposing that person was 5 years ago, but the person handling the case disappeared with the evidence. When they get to the top of the building, Polka notices the soul of a newly dead person and tells Lisa that he can make the soul visible to them on top of that building. Lisa tells him to go ahead and Polka reveals the person, to be Hibaki. Lisa greets the disfigured soul who recalls her and blames her for moving Hosorogi's body 5 years ago. Hosorogi's soul in the pen recognizes Hibaki as being one of his suspects, but then wonders why he's dead now. Did Lisa kill him in a place like that? Questions run through Hosorogi's mind as he watches Lisa question Hibaki. When it comes down to it, Lisa asks Hibaki to reveal the name of the person who ordered Hosorogi's death. Hibaki plays hard to get for a while, but then Polka hacks into his head and forces him to reveal the name of the person. As it turns out, Hibaki only killed Hosorogi as an offering to the bastard children of Sabaramond. As he whines about his evil deed, he recognizes Polka's powers and understands that he's been the one he's been searching for ever since. Moving on, he talks about his daughter and the sacrifice he made just for the cause. At this point, Polka is raging mad as Hibaki's memories flood through his mind and he gets to witness how devilish the bastard has been to the people in his life. Hosorogi could also feel the corpse deity's memories in his head, and he witnessed a single point in the necromancer's life where he got killed by his crackhead father just for some booze and drugs. At the point of his death, he also learned that his father sold off his siblings and mother just to get money to keep buying more drugs and whatnot. Having remembered this, he asks Lisa's permission to torture the life out of this bastard in front of him. Once Lisa gives him the go-ahead, Polka makes the netherworld a living hell for Hibaki's soul. While torturing him, he recalls the moment he was resurrected to be an undead person after his master and friend from the Empire found him stabbed earlier. Before he was capable of speech, the little boy listened to his master speak shit to his friend in the Empire and his friend as well. When they move on to talk about their dear friend, aka Mr. Bag of Bones, they talk to him like nothing's changed. The corpse deity is a little confused by this, but then the Empire friend lets him know that they don't think lowly about him in any way. Also, he warns him to avoid taking revenge on his nobody's father, as the Empire would always take his side any day, any time. Having remembered that, Polka continues trying to restrain himself from acting out of emotion. Just when he thought it was impossible to stop, his friend's soul, the one from the Empire, appears to remind him to be sane. Lisa and the others could see the guy and were concerned about summoning spirits that could end them. Meanwhile, the redhead is seen walking back to his lair nearby when he suddenly notices a strange presence that freezes him in his tracks. As for Iwa, he gathers the remaining cops at the station and asks them to help him catch Solitaire and Hibaki. Before outrightly asking them to do his bidding, he apologizes for being a bad leader, but then nobody cares about that now, so they all advise him to move forward. Moving on, Iwa works under the notion that Hibaki is still alive, so he urges his people to work as hard as they can, so they catch the bastard before he flees the country. After listening to their boss spew nothing but facts for the next few minutes, everyone gets their arses up and works to find the criminals. Seconds after appearing to stop his buddy from doing something bad, Polka's friend from the Empire warns him to stop going over the top just to get his revenge. He then urges him to remember their warning to him 100 years ago and take it to heart the next time he feels like playing leader over people's souls. Also, he tells him not to worry about staying in the new world for too long as he will soon vanish once his time is up. At that point, Polka stops torturing Hibaki and instead leaves things to his friend to handle. Before facing the perpetrator, his friend checks how modern the world is now and tells Polka that the others have been longing to see such a beautiful world. Polka apologizes for not being there for them initially, but then his buddy assures him that they will wait till the time is right to show up. With that said, Polka turns his back on his buddy and tells Lisa a thing or two about his friend. When Lisa calls the guy a good guy, Polka corrects her and tells her not to be fooled by his cute appearance. At the same time, Polka's friend goes haywire and starts using his dangerous magic on Hibaki's soul. For some context, a flashback shows the moment when the necromancer found out about his friend's secret hobby. After following his friend to a secret basement, the corpse deity found his master and another dude torturing a criminal to death. He keeps his mouth shut as he watches his friend stab the criminal's brain. Now at present, the same friend squashes Hibaki into a pool of blood, using a similar technique to the one he used 100 years ago. Polka scolds the man for being brash with his dealings, but his friend vanishes right after. Concurrently, the redhead notices the strange energy vanishing from this world. This gets him excited as he contemplates seeing the bug or his compatriot from the same world he's from. Moments after watching his friend vanish into thin air, Polka gets sully and lets his dude know that his wish for peace is still the same. In the next scene, Higuro is seen on a bus planning his next now that Hibaki's been caught. Just then, someone points a hot laser on his hand, and this makes him drop the phone. The granny sitting in front of him picks the phone up and starts operating, which is weird in itself. Higuro tries to get his phone back, but then everybody goes zombie on the man as the fire-breathing bug's servants, in a bid to catch him. Up next, Misaki calls Polka once they get back to the safe house and finds out he's with Clarissa. Meanwhile, Sayo is seen helping Xiaoyu attach one of his prosthetic arms with duct tape. While she's at it, she talks to Xiaoyu and tells him not to feel bad about her knowing his secret identity as an assassin for her father. If anything, she's thankful that he's been working behind the scenes to keep them safe for so long. Xiaoyu feels bad, just because he knows he's been working for his benefit, and not for the family's. Around that time, Takumi gets to talk to Lisa, who orders him to come get his injured leg checked out at the bar. After the call, Hosorogi asks Polka to ask Lisa something for him. After hearing him out, Polka asks Lisa to tell him how she knew Habaki was the mole all along. Lisa goes on to talk about her inside person in the police force, Donja Tozawa, including how she got to know about Habaki's betrayal before anybody else. Earlier that day, she'd gotten worried about Donja betraying Iwanome, but then Donja says he's doing it for a good reason. By being the bad cop, he can make sure Iwanome and the others don't get their hands dirty for the greater good. At that time, Iwa finishes dishing out orders to the other cops before checking out Hosorogi's final message to him. He explains to Arase and the other two that if Hosorogi isn't going to come meet him, then he's going to smoke out the organization that got him killed so he can be free to come see him. After listening to Lisa's words, Polka asks her to leave some final words for Hosorogi so he can deliver them to him if he finds his soul. Lisa urges Polka to tell her love goodbye as tears fill her eyes. At the same time, Iwa gets his hopes up on seeing his long-lost colleague. If he gets to see Hosorogi for one last time, then he's going to welcome him with open arms. Elsewhere, Higuro wakes up to find himself bound to a chair. Soon, Solitaire shows up to gloat over his new catch. When he gets to see Higuro's face, though, he becomes confused as he doesn't know who he is. Some minutes later, Polka and Lisa get back to the bar and find Misaki together with Takumi getting his wound treated. He discusses with Misaki a little and then offers to heal Takumi back if he can turn himself into a corpse. Takumi refuses this and instead chooses to go through pain. Polka takes note of the atmosphere in the bar and promises to do something about it. Meanwhile, Solitaire questions the man in front of him and suspects him to be in cahoots with Habaki. Moving on, he turns to the zombies near him and tries to figure out the reason they called him to help them uproot the organization from the inside out. When they hear everything Solitaire has to say, the fire breathers are impressed by his quick-witted thinking. This makes Higuro change his mind about Solitaire's way of life. For now, though, he needs to act stupid so the man doesn't catch on to his trick. So once Solitaire turns to continue interrogating him, Higuro does his best to throw Solitaire off his scent by stalling him with useless information. While Solitaire plays along, Takeru starts thinking of a way out of this messy situation. After getting Taipei's report about Takumi and Xiaoyu's condition, Takeru realizes that the enemy isn't as lax as they thought. If anything, they might be gunning for them right now. Takeru asks Taipei a few questions about Xiaoyu, including why he's so nonchalant about what happens to him. Taipei gives his reasons and Takeru moves on to hear from the lady beside Taipei. The lady tells him about the attacks the enemy has been conducting on his people, and Taipei mentions that his savings have been deducted from his account. Having heard everything, Takeru gets even more cautious and worried about what happens next. After receiving the huge deposit in his bank account, Xiaoyu decides to report to Roseanne. After placing the conference call, Roseanne tells him he's heard everything that happened to him the previous night. He thanks Xiaoyu for saving his daughter and keeping the others safe. Xiaoyu, upon hearing this, gets flustered and changes the subject to talk about his arms and legs. He then apologizes for losing them, but then Roseanne tells him not to worry about that, as Polka, who's behind him, already promised to fix that for him. Xiaoyu turns back and finds Polka just waiting to be noticed. Polka apologizes for startling him and asks Xiaoyu for his permission to get his lost limbs fixed. Xiaoyu initially tells Polka that he can't trust him, but then Polka gives him a hint of the real truth and challenges him to a serious fight in the basement. If he can win, then Polka will tell him everything he needs to know. When they get there, Xiaoyu urges Polka to fight him so he can expose him for the scammer he is. Once it's time to fight, Polka summons a dual-headed tiger monster and makes them attack Xiaoyu. From the way Xiaoyu fought the tigers, Roseanne was pretty impressed that he still had that much power in him, despite losing one of his fighting arms. After mouthing a few more random small talks, Roseanne warns Polka against letting Xiaoyu know the real truth, as he might get furious and cause chaos. Polka lets Rozan know that he's ready for violence at this point, so there's nothing to worry about. With that said, he stops the tiger from hitting Xiaoyu and thanks them for the fight. The tigers take a liking to Xiaoyu and lick him all over. Shortly afterward, Xiaoyu takes a shower to clean. While in the shower, he thinks about the fight earlier and realizes that Polka was holding back throughout, even after putting his all into the fight. After his bath, Xiaoyu visits Polka and asks for his name before letting him fix his arm. Polka tells him to call him the corpse deity, and this makes Xiaoyu surprised. The next minute, Polka fixes his arm and gives him the right arm of a colossal dragon whose lightning once lit the world. In exchange for the hand, Polka asks Xiaoyu to pledge allegiance to his cause. Before we continue the main story, another annoying flashback is shown to explain how the necromancer got his hands on the dragon's right hand in his old world. After it was defeated by Islil, the second-ranked sorcerer in the Empire, the colossal dragon proposed a 200-year contract conditional on buying its corpse back from the guild. During the period of the contract, the colossal dragon's soul permits Islil and her apprentice at the time, aka the corpse deity, to use its corpse for anything they want, no matter the situation. Now that the corpse deity has finally found use for the dragon's right hand, he needs to make sure it's worth it. In the meantime, Takumi takes the day off and listens to Sayo yap on and on about shark movies and their characteristics. Mind you, Misaki's seen around the corner just existing like nobody's business. After hearing her say nonsense about sharks for so long, Takumi asks her to just get to the point and stop wasting people's time. Sayo finally cuts the bullcrap and tells Takumi that they need to know how original Misaki is as a vampire. Since she's already almost like one, they don't need the enemy to find out about her strengths and weaknesses before they do. Takumi sees the brains in her suggestion and finally decides to ask the important questions. He asks Misaki if she gets affected by sunlight, and she says no. Moving on, he then asks if she likes to suck blood. Sayo answers the question for her, telling Takumi that her bloodlust can be solved by evolution and using magic to make her urges weaker. She then moves on to talk about more useless crap before finally ending things on a good note. After giving Xiaoyu a new arm, Polka tenders his apologies for giving Xiaoyu something he might not like. Upon stating the facts, he asks him again to become his ally right in front of Rozan on the same conference call, and Xiaoyu finally brings himself to believe Polka's story. When he asks about the plushie Polka's always had around him, Polka and Rozan explain that the real Polka is the one possessing the doll. Having heard this, Xiaoyu acquaints himself with the doll in his way, and continues listening to Polka's plan for the future, now that they know someone is coming after him. Up next, the fire-breathing bugs have a conversation with Solitaire, who they nickname the Summer Bug, to explain their goals so far. For starters, they say they're out to take down anybody that has ties with the bastard children of Sabarimond, as they believe their founder is a bastard child from the other side of the sky. Initially, Solitaire thought they meant a space alien, but then the fire-breathing bugs let him know that the person they're talking about is far from a space alien. Solitaire reasons with them and eventually realizes that his blimp stunt must connect somewhere. In the next scene, Iwanome visits one of the local branches of the police force to investigate an old case. One of his female colleagues soon shows up to check on him and asks him what he is doing there. Apparently, while everyone, including the police, thought that the fire-breathing bugs appeared for the first time just a few years ago, it turns out that they've been around for much longer. Besides, something didn't feel right with them, and Iwanome was off to find out what they were not seeing. At the same time, Misaki is seen preparing the next set of customers to get their fortunes checked at Polka's fortune-telling shop. Just then, the redhead from the previous night shows up disguised as one of the customers together with Lulu, his little girl, and Sawara, Habaki's lab rat daughter. Within their first few minutes there, Sawara gets bad vibes from the entire place, but then they meet the enthusiastic Makoto, who also happens to be a medical examiner for the police force and knows Iwanome pretty well. The guy was just too interested in Polka's fortune-telling shop as he made it his life's mission to convert non-believers into believers. Even when he gets to talk about the video of the invisible hands to the redhead and his people, Makoto remains positive and gives a pretty funny explanation for why the hands were on the roof that exact minute. The redhead just laughs at Makoto's ridiculous comments until it's his turn. Just as he's about to get his fortune checked, Makoto reveals his name to the redhead and gets into the room of fortune. Shortly after he's gone, the redhead pens down his name and divination wish. Misaki writes his name as civil and his divination wish, which is to know his fate over the next 100 years, as well as the other people he's going to see. Back at the police station, Iwanome asks Makoto to get his thoughts on something. Still, then the female colleague tells him Makoto's been skipping work lately as he recently got interested in a boy telling fortunes. On hearing this, Inaomi realizes Makoto's already deep into this fortune-telling gimmick, and it may already be too late to bring him out. Once he's done telling Makoto's fortune, Polka takes a break and discusses the remaining details of his dealings with Xiaoyu. For starters, he tells Xiaoyu that Hosorogi's soul is the one in the pen he uses to write the fortunes. Although startled, Xiaoyu still thinks of telling Solitaire as he thought Solitaire and Hosorogi knew each other like that. Polka asks Hosorogi if he knew Solitaire like that, and Hosorogi's soul replies with a heavy no. When Polka tries thinking about Solitaire's endgame, Misaki asks if his break is over. Polka keeps his shit together and tells her to bring the next person in. Once Civil enters the room, the entire atmosphere around Polka changes, and the air inside gets even more chilly. Polka uses his evil eye to check the guy out, and he finds millions of souls, all flocking around him with obsession-filled eyes. Polka tries to wrap his head around what could be happening, but there's just no feasible explanation for how a single person can have that many souls attached to him. Civil soon notices something wrong after the long pause, and asks Polka if there's something wrong. Polka casts a spell to keep his face normal and avoid freaking out. Once that's out of the way, he asks the guy about his peculiar life. Civil brushes that question off and decides to probe deeper just to get to know the real Polka, as he seems super important. He asks him about his connection with Solitaire, but Polka denies every single thing he knows about the dumbass. At that moment, Solitaire is seen fiddling around with a computer as he tries to force Higuro into giving up his face for an experiment. Higuro gets concerned by the old man acting like a fool and does his best to figure out what the matter is. Solitaire keeps him in circles, and Higuro asks about his phone. One of the bugs answers him, telling him that his phone has already been incinerated. Higuro complains about the phone being expensive, and the bug asks to know if he's truly not afraid of it. When the bug talks about the bastard children of Sabaramond, Higuro plays dumb and asks him what the word means. At that point, Solitaire butts in and clumps himself in the same group as Higuro, before moving on to continue hatching his diabolical plan. Meanwhile, Polka continues his normal session with Civil and asks him to elaborate on his divine wish. Civil uses an example and asks Polka if he thinks relatives of criminals should be punished alongside them to prevent someone from avenging them in the future. Polka tells him he wishes this world doesn't come to that. Civil chuckles and continues telling him about a certain bastard who's been hunting himself and his peers for 100 years now. Polka sympathizes with him and offers to help. However, Civil continues speaking more deranged things about punishment and whatnot, making Polka wonder if he's real or not. Once he's done yapping, he talks about the justification for killing the bugs, making Polka think he knows about the fire-breathing bugs, and maps out a tree of revenge and hate to support his reason for killing off relatives of those they kill unlawfully. At this point, the ghosts around the dude were already clapping in support of his words, and Polka was very scared at the thought of that happening. When he's done with his second yap session, Polka asks to know if he truly believes what he just said. Civil permits him to divine the answer from him, and Polka decides to do something he's never done before. Since Civil doesn't have evil eyes to see his sigils, Polka freely uses them to cast a spell that sends the remaining customers away. Once he's sure the building is free of civilians, Polka summons a higher power to rattle Civil's soul, all to see his reaction. Well, he gets the job done in a jiffy, and Civil could feel his mana bursting inside of him. While Civil's pretty psyched to have such a genius in this world, Polka is scared shitless by how dense this guy's mana is. Civil then gets confused as he's confirmed that Polka's a real human. He considers the possibility of someone from another world controlling Polka's body, and decides he's going to investigate that soon. Upon thinking things through, he asks Polka about the strange sensation he felt earlier, and Polka urges him to keep calm so he can peer into his soul a little bit further. Just as he's about to get that done, Lulu, Civil's little girl, rushes forward and warns Civil to leave that place as soon as she receives guidance from an elemental who tells her the place is dangerous. Polka checks the girl out and notices the elemental spirit living inside her. This makes him remember someone like her in his old world, the Lady Chancellor, who once told him about the suffering he must endure to achieve his goal. Civil tries to buy himself some more time, but then Sawara and Lulu tell him not to ignore the elemental's warning. Polka sees the scene play out in front of him and realizes that meeting them must be fate. Before he knows it, Civil gets up and apologizes for leaving so soon. He promises to be back as a friend, but just as he gets outside the door, Taipei shows up out of nowhere and punches Sawara's face. Moments before his clash with Sawara and the redhead, Taipei had met Kaochu, the crazy reporter, while she was on her way to the infamous building. Kaochu found the big guy checking the building out and stopped by to ask him questions about solitaire and the like. Before answering her, Taipei phones Takeru to get permission to speak. Takeru, upon realizing she is investigating Polka, permits Takeru to play along to find out what she knows. Taipei allows Kaochu to lead him into the building after getting permission, but when they get to the entrance, they sense the chill inside it, and Taipei could feel a deep, dark death. Seconds later, he gets a whiff of the redhead's scent and leaves Kaochu at the door to meet up with them. Kaochu is a little shocked to see the big guy act this weird, but she plays along and follows him. When she gets upstairs, she finds Misaki trying to get Taipei off their property so he can come by later. Kaochu distracts Misaki with her yaps for a second, causing Taipei to notice Sawara coming out of the room of fortunes. Once he confirms her to be the one attacking his people, he punches her in the stomach. After the attack, Civil asks if Sawara is doing okay, and Sawara tells him not to worry about her. Kaochu, on the other hand, feels pretty sad and stupid for letting such a suspicious big guy into the building like a fool. Moving on, Civil offers to help Sawara fight, but Sawara's pride gets in the way. Bao, Taipei's partner, reports the update to Takeru and explains how Taipei was able to identify the girl using the special perfume only worn by the Heilei family. When asked why Taipei would attack in such a situation, Bao says it's because he wants to fight a strong opponent. With this, the brawl begins with Sawara and Taipei going at it like animals. Xiaoyu notices the brawl in the hallway and quickly hides Sayo to protect her. Also, Polka shows up and instructs Misaki to take the reporter outside. As for Civil, he receives an important text while trying to analyze the strengths of the Shinoyama pawns and whispers something into Lulu's ears. Misaki, on the other hand, struggles to get Kaochu out of the scene for her protection and theirs. When Civil sees a camera shutter, he notices Taipei getting distracted and uses a very rare form of magic to palm punch the big guy, sending him flying a few feet back. Polka recognizes this form of magic to be the one Arius Sabarimond used back in his old world. In a memory recap, the corpse deity could remember the first time he witnessed Arius from his old world harvest or steal the elemental's power. After impressing even Islil herself, Arius chuckles and tells the necromancer that he envies the love and affection he's able to dispel towards others and even the deities. Someone like him can't feel such love as all he can do is pine for the world. Upon taking care of the nuisance, Civil pays Polka handsomely with a rare gem necklace. While they try to settle things, Taipei throws a knife at Civil. Sawara takes the stab, removes the knife, and heals her wound instantly, shocking both Taipei and Polka at the same time. Civil eventually compliments Polka's ability to stay calm as he didn't expect him to be like that when faced with such danger. Polka replies gracefully, impressing Civil the more. When it's time to go, he says his farewell and promises to be back soon. With the bastard gone, Taipei gets a call from his boss, and Polka gets to talk about the bastard child of Sabarimond they just saw. Now, with Takumi, Polka explains that he initially thought Civil to be the real Arius, as the way he used his magic reminded him of the sorcerer. However, after analyzing his soul's hue, it's pretty evident that the guy is different from the Arius he knows, but they're still connected. Just then, he searches around for the plushie and soon realizes that the real Polka's been abducted. While on their way back to their lair, Sora asks her boss why he interrupted her fight. Civil says it's because he doesn't feel the need to hide his power anymore. Since he was able to get into the country using his real name, he might as well try to figure out the Nimrod using his last name for his evil organization. Up next, a video of Higuro acting like an idol circles the internet. In the video, poor Higuro's face appears to have been photoshopped on an idol's body, and he's seen asking for information from anybody who happens to know about the not-so-secret organization, the Bastard Children of Sabarimond. In another part of Japan, the real idol, Ryuma Kanagi, sees the video and recognizes the body to be his. Although the guy isn't that mad, he's just surprised that technology has already advanced to the extent of creating deepfakes. Currently, it's trending and Solitaire's getting all the attention he needs. Civil and his buddies continue talking about their next move, but when Sawara asks him if he's cool giving Polka such amazing jewelry, the dude answers yes. Meanwhile, Polka's seen searching the entire room for the plushie, only to realize that the doofus had already been kidnapped. After telling Takeru through everything he learned, Taipei receives the order to start hunting those three. Civil, Sawara, and Lulu are then seen talking about the plushie they stole from Polka earlier. As it turns out, Lulu got divination from her elemental pointing her to the plushie, so Civil just had to take it for further investigation. Sawara asks for a better explanation, and the man says he feels that the person from his world is busy communicating with Polka through the plushie. After this, Civil moves on to divert himself from the path of the real truth by excessive yapping. Honestly, the plushie had to laugh at how ridiculous Civil's theories became. However, when Civil talks about the firebugs burning the plushie, the real Polka gets scared. Currently, Polka knows where they are, but he needs to be careful about his next moves. In the meantime, Polka is visited by Kuchu, who apologizes for bringing Taipei into the building, and Taipei himself, who asks him for a favor. Polka asks Taipei why he attacked the guy earlier, and Taipei tells him not to mind. Moving on, they all get to the Room of Fortune and talk to Takeru, who explains the situation to them before asking Polka to use his fortune-telling skills to identify the perpetrators. Although that's not exactly Polka's strong suit on paper, he promises to help out. Before ending the call, he informs Polka about the video Solitaire posted earlier. Elsewhere, Hijiro watches the video Solitaire deepfake just to put him out there and loses his shit right after asking him why he photoshopped his face to the idol's body. Well, Solitaire gets scared for his life and asks the calm Higuro if he's truly one of the Sabaramond kids. Higuro chuckles and says he's only their errand boy, as they've never even told him why the fire-breathing bug's been burning them for so long. If the fire-breathing bug can explain things to him, then he might understand the situation a little better. In the next scene, Majiri is seen talking some shit about a 100-year grudge that's been ravaging the underworld for some time now. At this point, she feels something great is about to happen, and she needs to be prepared for whatever happens. At that moment, Solitaire tries to give the bugs an identity, but they correct him by letting him know that they're not an entity, just mistakes or bugs in the real world. Concurrently, Iwaname already found out that the bugs have existed for 100 years now. As to why they're targeting the Sabaramond group, they're yet to know. Just then, Kayakusa, one of their colleagues, shows up with a 100-year-old case about a fire started in Shinjuku, which claimed the lives of 16 men and women who were clumped up in adjoining cells at the time of the fire. The only weird thing about this incident is that the case was covered up by the press. To investigate that, Iwanome has his people check old tabloids and newspapers at the time, while he and Arase follow Higuro's scent. Speaking of the devil, they all find Arase acting crazy. When he gets back to normal, he says he was keeping his emotions in check. At the same time, Takumi gets the same feeling and pauses work for the meantime. Polka, however, continues trying to figure out Solitaire's plan while still on the phone with Takeru. He asks Takeru to come in 3 days for the fortune-telling ritual. Takeru sees this as an excuse for him to search the net for his mother and whatnot. He accepts his proposal on the condition that the reporter does a scoop on the whole thing in 3 days. Left with no choice, Kuchu accepts her new mission and makes plans to continue her investigation. With that, they set their next meeting for 6 p.m. in 3 days and ended the call on a good note. After the call, Takeru instructs Bao to investigate Polka for the next 3 days, and also another person to investigate those 3 without engaging them. In a random subway garage, the redhead, Civil, Sawara, and Lulu are approached by the goons of the agency who want them to flee the country as per the Elder's request. Civil refuses to answer them, and the idiots point their guns at Lulu as a blackmail instrument. Just then, the elemental protecting Lulu goes AWOL and kills everybody with stones. Up next, Misaki throws a fit when she finds out the real Polka is missing. Polka, however, tells her not to be hasty, as the little girl possessed by the elemental spirit might turn the tables on them. At that moment, the elemental continues crushing every enemy in the garage till they're all dead. After their ordeal with the hooligans, Lulu gets sad and sorry for those she killed back in the garage. When they get back home, Civil takes his time to pet her and reassure her that nobody died in the garage, clearly knowing that he's lying. Sawara shows up, holds Lulu, and asks Civil why the elders from the organization are trying so hard to hide their traces. Civil says it's because they're scared of the fire-breathing bug. Thankfully, he has a stake in the entire thing, so he's bound to destroy some things before anything happens to him. For now, though, he'll work on exposing himself to the city so that the so-called bugs will show up to destroy him. Then, he can destroy them all in one fell swoop. Up next, Higuro asks Sori to tell him why he went to visit Polka on the night of the invisible hands. Sori asks him why he wants to know, and Higuro says it's because Sori might have already found the thing his employers have been searching for a century. Higuro then moves on to warn him about moving carelessly as he might lose his head next time. Sori thanks him for the heads up and continues his day. Elsewhere, Momoya finds Higuro's deepfake video online and laughs hysterically at the contents. From the looks of things, Momo seems to think Higuro is friends with Solitaire and even decides to ask for an autograph later on if they happen to meet again. Moving on, he talks about his sister who, at the time, is on the roof of a random building near Polka's building. There, she finds Bao, aka Xiaoyu's elder sister, watching over the Shinoyamas in the building, and tries to let her know that she's taking Xiaoyu from her when she gets her chance. Shortly after, she notices Bao trying to alert the others of her presence and quickly yanks the phone out of her hand before telling her to mind her manners. At that point, Bao chains both their hands together and warns Majiri never to harm or touch her younger brother as she's the only elder sister he needs. Before doing anything, Bao recalls the moment in her past when she killed a person who had tried to take her brother away, and then thanked Majiri for injuring her brother initially as that helped him get out of that cursed family. Surprised, Majiri asks Bao why she hates her family so much. But before Bao can say anything, Majiri breaks the chain binding her to Bao and gets ready for a real fight. Bao lets Majiri know that she's never a fan of that traditional bullshit, so she's fighting Majiri to the death to protect her brother. In the next scene, Polka takes Xiaoyu on a trip to the jewelry store to help him understand the use of gemstones in recharging mana, including his new arm. Xiaoyu, upon getting an understanding of the whole gist, asks him why he just can't get larger stones for better mana output, and Polka says they don't have money for that yet. Just then, Xiaoyu recalls how relieved he was back when the entire group wanted to report the real Polka's abduction to Rozan, but couldn't because he was in the hospital for his regular checkups. Xiaoyu resents himself for being such a klutz and not caring too much about protecting poor Polka. The necromancer Polka recognizes the feeling and helps Xiaoyu understand that he can talk to him if he needs to. Xiaoyu takes him up on the offer, and they both get somewhere private to talk about Xiaoyu's feelings. There, Xiaoyu tells Polka just how envious and angry he's been at the real Polka for not caring about his father's emotions and just acting out of place. To him, Rozan is someone who should be respected, and he feels sad that he can't be Rozan's real son in reality, as the bond he has with that man is something similar to that of a father and son, especially after he helped him with prosthetic limbs back then. After throwing a fit, Xiaoyu calms himself down and concludes he's just being jealous. Having heard everything he just said, Polka tells Xiaoyu about his piece of shit father and helps him understand that he's also had his fair share of shitty family members. On a final note, he lets Xiaoyu know that there's a visible bond between him and Rozan, and that's all that matters. While he still can, he should treasure the bond and make sure he doesn't destroy it. Xiaoyu nods in agreement and ends their conversation on that note. Later that night, Takeru receives a call from Lemmings who lets him know that he's done with his job overseas and will be returning to Japan soon. Takeru welcomes him back home and prepares a job for him upon his arrival. When he gets back home, Polka meets up with Takumi and continues apologizing for putting them all in harm's way. Takumi tells him not to fret since they're all in it together. Just then, they see another notification of one of Solitaire's stunts. This time, the doofus makes random objects just float into the sky like they're nobody's business. The police officers struggle to find out what the matter is, and Iwa exposes the stunt to be that of a copycat. Upon coming up with a few possible suspects, Iwanome ignores them and chooses to focus on the more pressing cases. Elsewhere, Solitaire revels in the works of his copycat and expects them to visit him. When his first visitors show up, they turn out to be the redhead and his minions. Initially, Solitaire doesn't recognize them, but then when Civil shows him the original insignia of the drawing he's been broadcasting as well as where it came from, Solitaire gets interested in knowing them. Back at the safe house, Misaki finds Polka doing his thing and talks to him about the friend he summoned back when he dealt with Habaki's ghost. Polka entertains her with some heartwarming comments about his buddies from the other world, before moving on to talk about those three Nimrods causing trouble everywhere. After mentioning some depressing things, Misaki holds his cheeks up and advises him to just do what he wants and make others do his bidding by force, just like she dragged him into her world in the first place. Upon hearing this, Polka thanks her and continues prepping to go save the real Polka. Moments after hearing the true motives of the three minions, Solitaire talks terms and conditions with them before moving on to recreate their little copycat trick from earlier. Apparently, Civil was getting cocky since he's the copycat, but then Solitaire helps him understand how easy it is to replicate such a trick. Upon seeing him do the same thing Civil did, the trio becomes very interested in the guy as they think he is also possessed, like Lulu. Elsewhere, Arase and Iwa arrive at the building where the fire broke out 100 years ago. Although it seemed all prettied up on the outside, especially now that some dynasty had bought it, something still didn't feel right, as they'd never even tried to sell the place before. Arase asks his boss if the building's connected to Solitaire at all, and Iwa helps him understand that Solitaire had already joined forces with the fire-breathing bug, so there's a high chance that he knows the building's backstory. Meanwhile, Solitaire keeps his yap up and agrees to help Civil advertise himself to the enemy if they can survive an attack from the fire-breathing bug. Before Civil can say a thing, the fire-breathing bugs surround the three and sing their anthem right before attacking all three of them. While the attack goes on, Solitaire starts getting afraid for his life as he fears the fire will roast him. As he tries to run away, Civil defends against the fire with his magic and faces even more attacks from the rest. While he defends himself, he recites the backstory that led to the creation of the fire-breathing bugs. Apparently, 100 years ago, the Sabaraman group gathered 18 men and women, most of which were children, and performed human experiments on them. To maintain secrecy, they burned up the entire facility and found only 16 bodies in the debris, meaning 2 of the supposed lab rats escaped and birthed the fire-breathing bugs to avenge the deaths of the others by hunting the rest of the Sabaraman bastards. After telling the story, Civil turns the tables on the bugs and makes them understand that they're also pests in this world. Once they get past that, the bugs promise to vanish off the face of the earth once they're done burning every last bastard child of Sabaramond. With that said, they set up a smokescreen and retreated for now. Civil's impressed by their battle intelligence, but he captures Solitaire to figure out where the bugs could be at. Solitaire tries to play the fool, but since he's dealing with people just like himself, there's very little he can do to lie to them. He tries boring them to death with meaningless information, but then Civil continues asking him why he visited the building in Shinjuku. Solitaire tells him he already has his answer. Besides, they always say to keep things careful, but what happens when the careless can handle the heat? This useless talk gets the trio distracted for a bit, so Solitaire takes his cue to exit the scene. Moments after he's gone, Sawara asks her boss how he was able to do the wind magic thing, and Civil says he just tried and did it. Being the supposed vessel of the great sorcerer, Arius Sabramond, Civil has always lived his life trying to measure up to standards. However, after trying to use magic and failing so many times, he gave up. Until Polka messed with his mana earlier, he wasn't able to use magic spells for his attacks. Now that he knows how to get things done, he can continue practicing till he gets his power back. Moving on, he talks about his partners and returning to his old world, before mentioning just how much he's longed for something that can cure his boredom. Just then, he receives a call from Grocer, who tells him he's already gotten his order ready. The Grocer lets him know that he's gotten every piece of information there is to get on Shinoyama Polka and his mother, Kanon Shinoyama. Civil thanks him for the help and ends the call to get back to his discussion. Up next, Solitaire is seen in an alleyway talking to a silhouette figure and asking it to show him what it is planned for the night. The next day, Iwa finds one of Hosorogi's reports on the fire from a century ago and settles down to analyze the documents. Just as he's about to do so, he recalls how things went the previous night with their investigation. As it turns out, a weird person stopped them from going into the house to finish their investigation. Iwa and Arase try to use the police card on the person, but then soon realize that the person is the actual caretaker of the house. With that, they head back to the station to dig deeper into the case. Now that they found their holy grail, Iwa's more than happy to finally get his hands on real information. Elsewhere, Clarissa's employees ask her what she has planned for the next day. To their surprise, Lisa just tells them they're going to spectate the whole ordeal, as she's willing to see how far Polka will go to achieve his peace. Moving over to Takeru's side, he finds some video footage covering the abandoned warehouse during his investigation of the 3 troublemakers. Upon checking it out, he finds the umbrellas of the fire-breathing bugs in the same building and starts wondering if the trio are the fire-breathing bugs all along. Just hours before their agreed meeting time, Polka and his crew get worried about what's happening next, as Taipei appears to be a no-show. Currently, he doesn't have a clue what or where those 3 came from, but if Takeru sees them as a threat, then he'll send aid. Moving on, they get to talk about Misaki and Xiaoyu's rescue mission for the real Polka, before coming over the type of name to give the necromancer inside Polka to avoid mixing things up. After listening to several baseless suggestions, Polka finally decides to tell his buddies the truth he's kept from them so far. As it turns out, out, his name was never that hard to speak, but there's always a trick to getting it right. Just as he's about to reveal the name his real parents gave him from the old world, Polka senses the real Polka changing location and decides to follow them. At the same time, Takeru and his people notice Sawara and Lulu leaving their building to get somewhere, so they decide to follow them. As for the last guy, Civil, he appears at Polka's safe house and sees himself as if he owns the place. When Takumi asks him how he was able to get in unnoticed, the maniac says he used the secret passageway in the basement. After that, he lets Polka know that he's there to make peace with him and not fight him, as few people understand him. From the way he talks, Polka senses he's likely from his old world, but then the dumbass starts talking rubbish about Polka getting his powers from his earthly mother, Polka Shinoyama, and Polka gets curious enough to ask for an explanation. The guy helps Polka, the necromancer, understand that Polka's real mother is a descendant from the clan with the elemental eye, Kanom Shelin Redrazalf. On hearing this, everything suddenly clicks in his head and the necromancer finally understands why he reincarnated into Polka's body after casting his spell. Even so, he's happy that his mother, the only person he couldn't save in his old world, found peace in the end and away from his terrible father. Misaki notices Polka shedding tears and asks him what the matter is. Polka cleans the tears off his face and concludes that he's going to have to see Polka again. With that said, he frowns his face at Civil and demands he return the real Polka, his little brother. Once he hears everything the necromancer just told him, Civil finally figures everything out. The real Polka is in the plushie they stole, so there's that. Not that it matters now, so Civil just gets right to his point. He tries recruiting the necromancer inside Polka to join hands with him so they can bring down the fire-breathing bug. Polka ignores the request and asks Civil if he knows Arius Sabaramon since he claims to be from the other world. In response, Civil says he doesn't know him personally since he's his bastard child. Some minutes later, Takeru and his people notice Lulu and Sawara approaching the safe house. Before they get far, Takeru tells Taipei to do whatever he wants with them, but then warns him that Sawara is there for him to fight. Back at the safe house, Civil tries to get Polka to join the organization again, but Polka condemns his methods and opts to work with Solitaire instead. On hearing this, Civil tries to blame Habaki for acting alone, but then Polka insults him by comparing him to the real Arius. Unable to continue yapping with his buddy, Civil urges Polka to show him his real power. At that point, Polka summons skeletons from the ground and walls behind Civil, and uses their power to hold him down. Shocked, Civil does his best to figure out Polka's true identity. After finding out his power is necromancy, Civil racks his brain a little bit further till he finally finds out his name, the corpse deity. Not too far away, Kushu feels the chill from the other day, but soon gets herself eager and ready to pursue her leads. Just as she's about to do so, Civil falls out of a window in the safe house and plummets to the ground below him. Soon, the fire-breathing bugs notice that the chaos has already begun, so they all get themselves ready to implant their will in Lulu so they can fish out the remaining bastards and burn them to death. On their way to carry out their will, Iwa and his buddies stop them for questioning. To their surprise, however, the hypnotic effect the fire-breathing bugs had on the ordinary civilians soon disappears, and they get back to their normal selves. One of them asks Iwa some questions about the fire-breathing bug, and Iwa does his best to explain the backstory behind the concept. After that, the guy gets scared and prepares himself to head out. However, Iwa stops him and explains the nature of the hypnosis used to implant the bug inside their subconscious. Currently, the first generation of firebugs are all dead, but the real creators of these anomalies use that trick to continue spreading their will over the world. Upon hearing everything Iwa just said, the fire-breathing bugs take over the man's body and appreciate Iwa doing his homework pretty well. Iwa doesn't stop there. Instead, he continues trying to get the fire-breathing bugs to stop whatever they're doing and leave finding the bastards of Sabaramon to the police. When he talks about Solitaire, the crazy menace is seen spectating the fight between Civil and Polka, the necromancer. Sora notices the big spark of energy that hit the sky about a second ago and leaves Lulu to go check it out. After brawling the first round out with him, Polka discovers Civil's magic to be crude and amateurish. Although the guy enhances his body pretty well with magic, fighting with it seems to be hard for him. When it's time for him to talk, Civil tries to guilt-trip Polka for not joining him, but Polka stands firm in his resolve and prepares himself for another attack. This time, Sawara joins the fight and helps save her boss from getting crushed by Polka's skeleton hands. Just as she's about to attack Polka, Xiaoyu shows up to fight her instead. Lulu sees the explosion Xiaoyu caused and starts praying to her elemental spirit to protect Sawara. Just then, she gets a warning from her great spirit, and soon enough, she gets to face the dreadful Misaki and her vampiric self. While they're at it, Civil goes on a rave to thank Polka for being the savior of this world. He then tries asking him to paint this boring world into one that suits his specialties, or better still, send them back to their old world. At that point, Civil starts conjuring spells that take the proper shape. Polka notices this and gets concerned about how quickly the guy was able to learn to cast attack spells like that. By the time the guy sets up a good enough sigil, he sends a pool of fire to burn Polka. One of the bugs spectating the fight nearby notices the fire and likens it to the incident that happened 100 years ago. In the meantime, Civil and Polka continue talking smack about each other and the world they're in. Civil relentlessly keeps trying to get Polka on his team so they can revolutionize the world together. But then Polka continues refusing such an absurd request. Moving over to Xiaoyu and Sawara, their fight takes an interesting turn, especially when Xiaoyu starts reading Sawara's movements more clearly, as it resembles that of the dual-headed tiger. He stops at a point to weigh his options, but only gets injured in the process. After receiving countless hits to the head by Lulu's elemental, Misaki gets back on her feet and demands Lulu return the plushie. Lulu, however, refuses to abandon her duty, and Misaki chuckles. Takumi notices the situation of things and gets worried about how the necromancer is going to handle things. Just when he's about to give up hope, Polka starts his legendary speech and makes sure Civil listens to every single bit of information he has to tell him. When he's done, he summons much stronger skeletons from the pits of hell and lets Civil know that he's going to rue the day he crossed paths with him. In another annoying flashback, the corpse deity is seen in his old world sulking and mourning over his imperial friend's body right after he just killed him. Moments later, the man's soul appears over his body to taunt and make fun of Polka for being such a sore loser. While he's at it, the necromancer gets into a trance and meets the elemental who outwitted him and made him kill his friends. After getting a quick laugh from finally outsmarting the so-called wandering balcony, the elemental curses the corpse deity and leaves him to suffer for his crimes for eternity. Once he gets out of his trance, he finds his friend's soul floating on his body and listens to it discuss how to cover up the crime he just committed, almost as if the man was trying to shield his murderer from facing justice. Initially, the corpse deity couldn't understand what his buddy was trying to do, but soon enough, it becomes pretty clear what his imperial friend wants him to do. In return, the friend asks the corpse deity to live a long life and spend most of it atoning for his sins. At the time, the friend's ghost meant that as a joke, but it turns out that the foolish necromancer took it too seriously. Now that he's faced with similar danger, the so-called corpse deity is ready to die for someone else, and his buddy's spirit isn't really happy with this. Having relived the past for a few moments, Polka continues watching Civil talk about Polka's reincarnation technique and reasons for possessing someone like the real Polka. Once Civil is done talking, Polka continues the fight and promises to possess his body after he's done with him. In the meantime, Takumi gets an emotional breakdown as he steps out of his comfort zone to hack into the city's PA system just so he can talk to Polka. When he finally gets through, he calls Polka and warns him against looking down on them, especially now that he has crazy ideas to return Polka's body and leave the world for them. Up until that point, they've gone along pretty well, so leaving them now isn't going to help anybody at all. For now, he needs to trust his friends for support and let them come through for him when he needs help. With that, Takumi hijacks the city's power and turns it all off to buy Polka some time to go all out and destroy the bastard called Civil. After seeing what Takumi did to keep Polka from being seen, Civil gets the crazy idea to attack random places and off some people just to put his opponent in trouble. Polka can already see through his trick, so before he carries it out, he releases all the gemstones he'd been stockpiling for ages, recharges his mana, and conjures more powerful magic spells. Civil notices Polka's use of gemstones and wonders how he got so many gemstones in a short time. Polka doesn't give him any breathing room either, as he summons monsters from the underworld to keep him busy. While fighting off the monsters, Civil accuses the corpse deity of spending Polka's fortune just to buy many expensive gemstones. Polka then tells him that he's earned every cent he used to get the stones and never stole from the real Polka's fortune. A few minutes after driving the monsters away, Civil urges Polka to look at the death and destruction he's caused, as there's no way he can pretend that didn't happen. By then, Polka reveals the truth behind the atmosphere they're in right now. While Civil was busy yapping his arse out, he created a larger temple than the one he did a few weeks ago. This time, the Netherworld Temple covered the entire city, and the humans Civil thought were real, were fake zombie humans made to deceive the fool. Meanwhile, Taipei phones his boss to apologize for not getting closer to the enemy and explains that the enemy somehow has him in their sniper scope and is shooting at him to delay him. At the same time, Lisa is seen spectating the fight between Civil and Polka, wishing the corpse deity some luck in his fight for peace. As their fight rages on, Civil and Polka continue trying to get into each other's heads, with one judging the other. Polka downplays himself to be a weakling for allowing an enemy necromancer to control him to kill his best friend. As he pauses the fight, he thanks his friend's spirit for still considering him as a friend even after everything he did to him in the past. While Civil struggles to understand what Polka is trying to say, Polka summons the spirit of his best friend. Once the spell's complete, his imperial friend from a century ago shows up with his other friends to fight for Polka. After exchanging pleasantries with his old-time buddy, the Emperor of the Fallen Empire, whom Civil calls Flamrodia Biandalaz, walks forward to take Polka's place in the fight. Civil couldn't understand why the Emperor would choose to fight for his murderer, but he welcomes him to the fight anyway. Once they discuss strategy, everyone disperses to fulfill their functions before the underworld calls them back. Meanwhile, Solitaire senses something weird in the air and tries to get the fire-breathing bugs' comment on the situation. By then, the bugs tell him that they have to burn the entire city before another tragedy hits it. However, before they get to do that, the ghost of one of their innocent victims pops up and urges them to chill and wait for the corpse deity to finish his fight first before doing anything rash. Concurrently, Iwa keeps trying to get the bugs to stop their revenge while he helps them hunt down the remaining children of Sabarimond. When the bugs ask him how he plans on making them trust him, Iwa holds them down and tells them to copy their will into him. This shocks even the bugs themselves, as that's the last thing they ever thought he'd ask them. As for Misaki, she continues receiving hits from various objects as Lulu's elemental keeps protecting her. At one point in the fight, Lulu asks her why she tries so hard. Misaki gives her a half-assed reason why and continues fighting her elemental. Upon receiving a few more hits, Lulu finally figures Misaki out to be a vampire. Before she could do anything about it though, Misaki yanks the real Polka's spirit from her hands and takes him for himself. Sawara, on the other hand, soon gets visited by lemmings, so she decides to crank up her powers so she can fight both Xiaoyu and lemmings. As she begins her power-up, Xiaoyu notices her form and uses his right arm's power to yeet her away from the battlefield. Just then, an earthquake happens, but everybody ignores it as they continue fighting their fight. Nearing the end of his fight, Polka and his friends soon get a feel of how powerful and smart Civil is, as he seems to be getting closer to Arius's power by the second. After taking Sawara down, Xiaoyu rushes over to Misaki's to get the real Polka back, hoping the real Polka can forgive him for neglecting him in the first place. While he's on his way, Misaki continues avoiding and defending against all of Lulu's attacks. When Xiaoyu finally shows up, Misaki hands him the plushie and continues stalling Lulu's elemental. At one point in the fight, Misaki discovers a new ability as she turns one of the weapons hauled at her into bats. As the attacks keep coming, one of the spirits that was summoned by the Imperial friend shows up to soothe the elemental possessing Lulu. After mouthing a few words from her time, the old woman pats Lulu's head, happy to finally see her descendant once again. Not too far away, Majiri notices Xiaoyu's new arm and wishes she'd left the prosthetic arm earlier. Having seen her brother in good shape, Bao thanks Majiri and proposes a truce till Xiaoyu decides the way forward. Once Civil realizes that Polka has stopped the elemental, he decides to go all out and bring home the win. After watching him conjure a circle large enough to be called an original Arius magic circle, Polka decides to ask his friends for a few more favors before giving up. He asks his Imperial friend if he's okay with him using his life force and all that, and the man says yes since they're long dead and forgotten. After exchanging a few more words of encouragement with the ever-polite corpse deity, Polka finally musters the courage to use his friend's spiritual powers to the fullest. With that, his buddy uses a magic circle so large that it cancels out Civil's magic circle and causes a large explosion. After hearing his boss beg the enemy to take over his mind, Arase punches the shit out of Iwa to get him back to his senses. Thankfully, this works as Iwa soon gets his shit together to avoid entering trouble. Moved by his resolve, the bugs decide to chill out and see if Polka can truly bring peace to the world exactly the way they want it. If he can, then they will disappear off the face of the earth. At that point, They let go of their hypnotic victims and everybody's back to normal. Sawara wakes up and finds herself chilling on a rooftop surrounded by the dual-headed tigers. Tired of the fighting, she decides to just chill with them. As for Polka the necromancer and Civil, they sit and have a conversation like normal humans for once. Civil asks him why he saved him, and Polka says it's because he didn't want that little redhead kid to continue crying inside him. Civil ignores his comments and lets Polka know that he might regret this someday. Even at that, Polka still promises to use his power to save everybody just like he did now. At this point, Civil gives up on trying to get to the other world and instead chooses to chill in the boring one for now. Around that time, Misaki gets to see her wonderful Polka again and everything returns to normal. In the final scene of the movie, Polka and his necromancer self get targeted by those who want him dead, and Lisa warns him to be wary of them.